2020 at 7 p.m. via teleconference. Prayer will be offered by City Clerk Sue Lovering, and Alderwoman Lou will lead us in the pledge to the flag.
Almighty God, we have the high honor and the serious duty to manage the affairs of our beloved city. Fill us, O God, with a spirit of unity and understanding, which enables us to face our multiple problems with a serene mind, with justice and charity for all, so that any and all decisions made by us will always be for the betterment and greater happiness of all our fellow citizens. So help us God. Amen.
To the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, as president of the Board of Aldermen, I find that due to the state of emergency declared by the governor as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic and in accordance with the governor's emergency order number 12 pursuant to executive order 2020-4, this public body is authorized to meet electronically. Please note that there is no physical location to observe and listen contemporaneously to this meeting, which was authorized pursuant to the governor's emergency order. However, in accordance with the emergency order, I am confirming that we are, A, providing public access to the meeting by telephone with additional access possibilities by video or other electronic means. We are utilizing WebEx through the city's IT department for this electronic meeting. All members of the Board of Aldermen have the ability to communicate contemporaneously during this meeting through this platform, and the public has access to contemporaneously listen into this meeting through dialing the following number, 978-990-5298, and using the password 273974. The public may also view this meeting on Comcast Channel 16. B, providing public notice of the necessary information for accessing the meeting. We previously gave notice to the public of the necessary information for accessing the meeting through public postings. Instructions have also been provided on the City of Nashua's website at nashuanh.gov and publicly noticed at City Hall and the Public Health Department. C, providing a mechanism for the public to alert the public body during the meeting if there are problems with access. If anyone has a problem accessing the meeting via telephone or channel 16, please call 603-821-2049 and they will help you connect. D, adjourning the meeting if the public is unable to access the meeting. In the event the public is unable to access the meeting via the methods mentioned above, the meeting will be adjourned and rescheduled. Please note that all votes that are taken during this meeting will be done by roll call vote. Let's start the meeting by taking a roll call attendance. When each member states their presence, please also state whether there is anyone in the room with you during this meeting, which is required under the right to know law, if you can be heard, and why you're not. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman O'Brien.
I am present. I can hear the proceedings. I am alone and practicing social distancing.
Alderman Clee.
I am here. I can hear you. I am alone at the moment, but my husband and greyhounds are in the house and can make it a visit at any point.
Alderwoman Kelly.
I am here. I'm alone. I can hear everyone, and I am practicing social distancing.
Alderman Dowd. Alderman Karen. Alderman Clemens.
Yes, I am here. I can hear everyone, and I'm by myself and practicing social distancing.
Alderman Lopez.
I'm here. I'm by myself, and I'm pretty good at social distancing at this point.
Alderman Tenza.
I am here. I can hear everybody, and I am by myself.
Alderwoman Lou,
Present. I'm alone and can hear you.
Alderman Jettie,
I'm here, I'm alone, and I can hear you.
Alderman Schmidt,
I'm here, I can hear you, and except for my parrot, I am alone.
Yep, yep.
Oh, that's Alderman
Okay.
Karen.
Karen,
a microphone down in the bottom of it on your screen as you look at it.
No, it says
On the
speaker.
smart.
On the smartphone, I just press the speaker, and then it says contact, it says mute.
Oh, well, hit, well, see,
Here, Alderman.
I have an Android. My speaker is controlled by the button on the right side of the phone.
President Wilshire,
And
you can't mute
I
us.
control my microphone
Okay,
by pushing the face of my smartphone where there's a picture of a microphone.
okay, if I put,
Oh, see, I'm hearing it feed back on me now from your phone.
oh, so do you think maybe they have me, or no, do I have to
Alderman
call them
Karen?
back?
I can hear you. Alderman Karen?
I would use the link
Okay,
to call in.
All
That
right.
is in the invitation.
Yep, I got it. I have the
So
number.
click on the link in the invitation, and that should bring you
Oh,
in
boy.
on a phone line.
I can't mute that. That's a phone call.
It says join meeting. That's with a computer. So you scroll down a little
Oh,
bit.
yeah, but I'm not on.
Alderman Laws, Alderman Cleaver, Alderman Harriet Gathright, Alderman Wilshire.
I am here, I am alone, and I'm staying home due to social distancing.
I've recorded 10 participating.
Madam Clerk, this is
I'm not
Steve
sure. Can you hear
Walton.
me?
I believe Alderman Harriet
Yeah.
Gaffney was muted, but is trying to acknowledge her presence.
Yes, I am here. One of my daughters is here. She may come in at any point, anytime. And I am practicing social distancing and I can hear everyone
Thank you very
and I can
much.
see you.
I've recorded you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the mayor I did talk to the mayor. He is up in the planning board meeting, as is Alderman Dowd. So they may be joining us at some point during the meeting. Communications.
Communication has been received from President Laurie Wilshire calling a special Board of Aldermen meeting on Thursday, May 21st, 2020 at 7:00 p.m.
There being no objection, I'll accept the communication and place it on file.
Communication has been received from Tim Cummings, Economic Development Director, regarding request for special Board of Aldermen meeting to seek approval to narrow Main Street.
There being no objection, I'll accept the communication and place it on file.
And the following communications have,
Hello? Can anyone hear me?
Yes, Alderman Karen, we can hear you.
Finally, thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, sorry.
the following communications have been received from the public. From Travis Tripodi regarding Board of Public Health recommendation regarding wearing masks. From Andy Cooper regarding ordinance requiring face masks. From Jeff Locke requiring face masks. From Mary Ellen Carter Gilson regarding to please support the mask ordinance. From Susan Merrigan in support of becoming a mask city. From Willie Reed regarding a letter against mandatory mask wearing. From Catherine Blair in support of the mandatory use of face masks. From Kathleen Donnan of Ward 3 regarding the mandatory mask opinion. From Jean Porter regarding mandatory masking. From Amanda Blair in support of the mask ordinance. From Rita Constanzi of Ward 3 regarding masks. From Jeff Gilson regarding the mask ordinance. From Evelyn Danforth and Violet Vesey regarding to please make it mandatory to wear a face mask in public buildings. From Laura Warinen regarding face masks. From Ralph Callaway regarding masks. From Beth Scare regarding Nashua restaurants are suffering. From Robert Jewis regarding masks for everyone everywhere. And from Leah Donahue regarding masks in favor of.
There being no objection, I will accept the communications relative to masks and Nashua restaurants and place them on file. There being no objection, I'll suspend the rules to allow for an introduction of additional communications that were received after the agenda was prepared.
Communications from Alderman at Large Ben Clemens regarding the Downtown Improvement Committee expenditures to date. From Jean Batchelder regarding mandatory masks. From April Flood regarding being against mandatory face masks. From Paula Monzerol Smith regarding mandatory masks.
There being no objection, I'll accept the communications and place them on file. New business ordinances.
First reading of ordinance O-2015 relative to the temporary road closures and elimination of certain on-street parking for use by restaurants for outdoor dining.
Alderman Clemens, do you have a motion?
Yes, I do. I would move to suspend the rules for a second reading of O-2015 by roll call.
The motion is to suspend the rules to allow for a second reading. Discussion on the motion to suspend. Hearing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman O'Brien.
Yes.
Alderman Clee.
Yes.
Alderwoman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman Karen. President Wiltshire, did you hear Alderman Karen?
No, I did not.
Alderman Clemens.
Yes.
Alderman Lopez.
Yes.
Alderman Tenza.
Yes.
Alderwoman Lou.
Yes.
Alderman Jettie.
Yes.
Alderman Schmidt.
Yes.
Alderman Harriet Gathright.
Yes.
Alderman Wiltshire.
Yes,
You have 11 yeas and 0 nays.
and that motion carries. Alderman Clemens. Oh, sorry, sorry, Madam
reading.
Clerk.
Second reading of ordinance O-2015 relative to the temporary road closures and elimination of certain on-street parking for use by restaurants for outdoor dining.
Alderman Clemens.
Thank you. I move for final passage of O-2015 by roll call.
The motion is for final passage. Is there discussion on that motion?
Yes, I had a couple of questions.
Alderwoman Lou.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Sorry. Perhaps this is better left to comments at the end. I'm all set, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yes.
I have a couple of questions.
Alderwoman Kelly.
Yes, thank you. I know that there have been a number of calls and there's been a lot of good work on this. I just had a couple of questions just from a standpoint of how this will all work. I know I was actually downtown looking at how many are out there. Are we going to eliminate? Are we going to allow them to expand on the sidewalk and then have the road be where pedestrians walk? Is that how we're doing it?
I'm going to ask Tim Cummings to address that question. Tim, are you there?
I see him.
I'm here, Madam President. Can you hear me?
Yes, Director Cummings.
Yes, thank you. And so just to be clear, which ordinance are we speaking to? Are we speaking to the narrowing or temporary road closure
Yes.
ordinance?
Yes.
Okay, so to that very specific question, the ability to still traverse the sidewalk will be maintained adhering to the standards for ADA, which is a 5-foot width, and that will be maintained throughout each entire block. The outdoor seating can, where appropriate, where you can still accommodate those types of standards and it's still safe from both a public health perspective, could have some tables on the sidewalk, but where it is not, it would be extended out into the street.
You all set, Alderman Kelly?
If I could follow up, I'm sorry. I'm not
Yeah.
sure that I fully understood the answer.
Okay.
So are you saying that by ADA compliance, we have to keep the sidewalk open?
Not the entire sidewalk, but you have to maintain 5 feet.
So for example, if I'm San Francisco Kitchen and there's no space, happened to be there recently, there's no space between me and the street because there's a flower box, I don't get to expand my patio, or I can expand it out into the street?
You'd be able to expand it out into the street under this proposed ordinance.
Okay. Okay.
This
Okay,
is
that was my
Steve
question.
Bolton. I think I can help out with this.
Okay.
The 5-foot requirement has been in effect since we've had dining on the sidewalks. So I think what you can expect on the sidewalks is what you've seen for many years. Out in the street, you will see more tables, but the tables, maybe fewer of them, maybe spaced further apart, and be in the same places on the sidewalk that they have been before. The pedestrian pathway will be in the same place that you've been seeing it for years.
That was my question. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you. Anyone else? Discussion?
I have a question.
Alderman Lopez.
I just have a question for Director Cummings. Given that the footprint for all of these restaurants isn't identical, some places may not have the same access to sidewalks and that type of thing. Are we also working on potentially letting restaurants, maybe like SFK, that don't have front accessibility, figure out some opportunity if they have back property access?
Director Cummings?
Yes.
In a row?
Yeah. Yes.
Hello?
Hello.
June, we can hear you.
Okay, now they can hear me. Thank you. Bye. Bye. I'm sorry.
If I may, Madam President, the answer to Alderman Lopez's question very simply is yes.
Okay, thank you. I figured it was in the works, but you didn't have a chance to reboot the entire downtown.
Okay, the motion before us is for final passage of ordinance 2015. Further discussion?
Yes, Alderman Jettie here.
Alderman Jettie.
So I know that a lot of us have participated in presentations that Director Cummings has made explaining in great detail what this ordinance proposes to do. But I hope I'm not out of line in asking if Director Cummings, for the people who are watching and who have not been able to attend those discussions, could I impose upon him to do a brief overview of what this plan is and what this ordinance will do?
I'll have to ask him. Director Cummings?
Yes, thank you, Madam President. If it's the pleasure of the body, I have the map up and could share my screen and very quickly go through it if that is what you'd wish.
That'd be great. Thank you, Tim.
Okay, so bear with me while I begin to pull up my screen. And hopefully you can now all see my screen on the on your computers, and I believe this would actually also be televised to the general viewing public. So I'm just going to quickly refresh to make sure I have the latest update. And I will slowly make my way up from Library Hill. So what you see here at Library Hill is the start of Main Street, and the theory behind narrowing Main Street will happen right after Canal, and I believe this is Franklin. The reason why we're not doing anything with this intersection is because this is a temporary proposal. To change this intersection, there would be significant expense, and this is a very heavily used volume intersection as well. And when we have the length of, for lack of a better way of describing it, runway here to narrow, as this orange line indicates, we can safely transition the vehicular traffic into one lane. So with that being said, when throughout this entire map, you will see purple and green and red. What this is indicating is if it's in red, it's a handicap spot. It will be shifted. It will not be lost. If it's green, it will transition to curbside, 15-minute parking. And that parking in a companion piece to this piece of legislation is being asked to be for free. After that 15-minute curbside parking, enforcement would be in effect. So I'm sorry, I'm seeing comments pop up on my screen here. Should I continue?
Yes, please.
Okay. So right here you have Peddler's Daughter. Peddler's Daughter is showing outdoor seating right here. If you're seeing yellow throughout this entire plan, that is indicating a concrete barrier that will safely keep vehicular traffic from the outdoor dining patron. This would be the sidewalk, as noted earlier. You can't block for the public way, the 5DA ADA access. So, there really is an opportunity at Peddler's Daughter for any type of table seating on the sidewalk here due to the just current state of the road condition. You could, and there is on occasions, outdoor seating along here, which would still continue to be the case if that's the business operations desire. What we would be affording them is the ability to temporarily use this space right here for outdoor dining. Continuing along, there's different traffic calming measures being implemented to narrow the street, which is what is my mouse is traversing right now to just outline how the roadway will be narrowed. Getting to this intersection here, this is the intersection of Water. It has been raised the question of, well, can we have a right turn lane through here? The answer to that is we will study it. If need be, adjustments will be made. We'll evaluate that as necessary. You can still make right-hand turns. That is not going to be precluded. You will have through traffic, and then if you note, you'll also have a left, an ability to make a left here as well. So there is ample capacity throughout this whole entire proposal to accommodate vehicular traffic. What you're seeing from time to time is one way completely through both north and south with the additional capacity for turning lanes where it can be provided. Continuing along, you will see, again, the purple representing where outdoor dining would take place, and in the green where you'd have that curbside type pickup. Curbside pickup would be along here. for San Francisco Kitchen. There's a narrowing of the roadway back here to accommodate this new condition. Continuing along, you have the blue here does not represent outdoor dining. What it represents is trying to maintain a consistent outdoor dining experience and vehicular traffic to have the ability to continue through the roadway here without being confused by having an extra turn lane or additional capacity, which may cause congestion later on down in the intersection. Continuing along, again, you'd have curbside, outdoor dining. Just going to back it up here a little bit, show that this is High Street. High Street, you as of today, you cannot make a left to go north on Main. You can only go right going south. This would be outdoor dining here, curbside here. We provided outdoor dining here, but it may not be used as outdoor dining as the plan continues to happen. This still will be maintained for vehicular reasons. It may be more like the blue condition over here, where we're just maintaining it for outdoor space, which you have to do to maintain this type of flow for vehicular movement and public safety reasons. On East Pearl Street here, we're going to have the curbside pickup back in through here, and then the outdoor dining right in through here. That would service these restaurants, including Fartello's. Fartello's would have an opportunity to have outdoor dining right in through here. Curbside parking would be here. This would be MT Locals right here. This is Surf. This is, again, could be Surf right here as well, a curbside parking. We also have, I believe, Joanne Kitchen and Main Street Gyro in through here. The narrowing of Main Street for going north does not happen back here at Kinsley. It actually happens closer to St. Patrick, and the condition would begin right in through here. So you'd have all this capacity, and you would not interfere with the volumes back here. This plan has been reviewed both internally and externally. It has received public comment. An informational briefing was given to the Board of Public Works. I've had individual conversations with many of the restaurants and shops on Main Street to make sure we were accommodating their needs. And I'm pleased to report it has been well received by many, many people. So with that being said, Madam President, I think I very quickly went through this for you and addressed I believe, the concerns.
Thank you very much, Director Cummings. Alderman Jettie, did you have any other questions?
No, thank you very much, Mr. Cummings, for going through that. I do want to say that this ordinance was proposed, or this plan in the ordinance to enact it was in response to the governor's starting to open up the economy and allowing various businesses to reopen, and one of them being restaurants. But the governor's order does not allow indoor dining, only outdoor dining. And most of our restaurants are rely upon indoor dining for their business and don't have the capacity to accommodate outdoor dining. So this plan gives them outdoors to an area outdoors where they can serve their patrons. So I think it's a good idea. A side benefit of this is there's been talk for a number of years about the possibility of narrowing Main Street on a permanent basis, similar to what Concord did, in order to kind of redesign Main Street in the downtown area, make Main Street more of a destination and less of a thoroughfare. So, as a side benefit, I think it's a great opportunity for us to experiment with that and see how that works out. So I appreciate all the work Director Cummings and a lot of other people have done on this, and I'm going to support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Jettie. Anyone else?
Yes, Madam President.
Alderman Clemmons.
Thank you. And I hope that you can afford me a little bit of leeway here, because the question that I'm going to ask is actually either to Director Cummings or Corporation Counsel. And it may not seem germane, but I will get to that. So my question is there currently an ordinance or a rule that prohibits umbrellas with advertising downtown?
Director
I can
Cummings?
answer that. Yeah, I can answer that, Madam President. What there is a regulation in the current outdoor dining process that was approved by the Board of Public Works that prohibits logos or something of that nature, quote unquote, advertising on umbrellas in the right of way.
Okay. My question then next would be definitely to Corporation Counsel. And I'm doing this because Alderman Laws was unable to attend this evening, and he wanted to perhaps entertain an amendment to see if we could potentially have an exception to that rule via an amendment to this to allow for that. The reason being is that on the east side of Main Street, the sun gets extremely bright in the afternoon. And a lot of the restaurants that are downtown are able to get through their various liquor vendors or other vendors, umbrellas and things like that they can get for free. And they're able to, if they were able to put them up on their tables, this would definitely be better for the the customer experience. Plus, it wouldn't cost them anything. And the issue is that on some of these, to get a non-branded one, the really nice umbrellas that you would want that won't blow away in the wind, somewhere cost anywhere between $150 to $250. So my question to Corporation Counsel is, because that's a Board of Public Works rule, would it be possible for the Board of Aldermen to pass an amendment to this legislation that would temporarily allow umbrellas with advertising and logos?
Alderman Clemmons, I've not looked at this recently, but it seems to me this question came up 2 or 3 years ago. And while there is in the Board of Public Works set of rules about outdoor dining and placement of tables and so forth, wording about advertising signage, which encompasses that located on an umbrella. I think the real impediment are the regulations of the State Liquor Commission. And they have a 4-inch maximum for advertising, 4-inch maximum size for logos and advertising of alcohol products. So beer, wine, what have you. And that seems to be the biggest impediment. So it may be that you want to address that in an amendment to this legislation, It may be better to let us take a longer look at this and bring it up as a separate piece later. I am not 100% sure that you can achieve your objective because you cannot overrule the state liquor.
Okay, so yes, then, with all due respect to Alderman Laws, I'm glad I asked the question. What I will ask you, if you can look into that for us a little bit further, so that we can propose legislation to get that done. It could be that that some of these liquor distributors know that that's a rule and they manufacture these things that way. I don't know. But yeah, if you could look into that, that would be great. Thank you.
And I will do that.
I hate to interrupt, but we have lost the bridge. So we're getting it back right now.
Okay, we're gonna hold.
And I'll get right back to you on it.
Thank you.
Madam President, I have a question.
Alderman Harriet Gathright.
Can I,
can you excuse me?
opening up, I was eager to drive through and just see what it looked like to have, restaurants open and people on the sidewalks chatting and eating. And I think that with this opening, it will probably attract a lot of people who feel that way, even if their towns aren't open up, or if they don't live in a town. It's going to attract a lot of people in the beautiful weather just to come down, even just to look. And as we do every year, I think that we may have a lot of motorcycles coming through. And my concern is the loud exhausts. And I think to make this a great experience, we should, I'm hoping that we can have the police department have dedicated patrols to stop those loud exhausts before they can enter the downtown area. Because I think that will just make it a much better place for the people that are downtown. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderwoman Lou. Anyone else? Would the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman O'Brien,
Yes.
Alderman Clee,
Yes.
Alderwoman Kelly,
Sorry, yes?
Alderman Karen,
Yes.
Alderman Clemmons,
Yes.
Alderman Lopez,
Yes.
Alderman Tenza,
Yes.
Alderwoman Lou,
Yes.
Alderman Jettie,
Yes.
Alderman Schmidt,
Yes.
Alderman Harriet Gathright,
Yes.
Alderman Wilshire.
Yes.
You have 12 yeas and 0 nays.
And that motion carries. Ordinance 20-15 is duly adopted.
First reading of ordinance O-2018 relative to face coverings.
Alderman Lopez, do we have a motion?
Yep, I'm just checking on language here. I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules for a second reading of O-2018 by roll call.
The motion is to suspend the rules for a second reading. Discussion on the motion to suspend the rules. Seeing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman O'Brien,
Yes.
Alderman Clee,
Yes.
Alderwoman Kelly,
Yes.
Alderman Karen,
Yes.
Alderman
Yes.
Clemmons,
Yes.
Alderman Lopez,
Yes.
Alderman Tenza,
Yes.
Alderwoman Lou,
Yes.
Alderman Jettie,
Yes.
Alderman Schmidt,
Yes.
Alderman Harriet Gathright,
Yes.
Alderman Wilshire.
Yes.
You have 12 yeas and 0 nays.
And that motion carries.
Madam President, I think they've asked us to take down the presentation because no one can see it on the television screen.
Director Cummings, can you take down the presentation at this point?
Yes, I'll be happy to. I'm going to do that right now.
Thank you.
Alderman Wiltshire, can you hear me again?
Yes, we can, Alderman Karen.
Okay, I don't know if you got my vote, so,
We did.
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Second reading of ordinance O-2018 relative to face coverings.
Alderman Lopez.
I'd like to make a motion for a final passage of O-2018 by roll call, and I'd like to speak to it.
Alderman Lopez.
So I proposed something similar to this, or at least I asked a question as to whether there were any legal reasons we wouldn't be able to augment our public health expectations that we, for example, wear shirts and shoes in restaurants prior to the governor's orders to open within phases. I had briefly suggested that maybe we should just wait and see what he did, thinking that he would likely include some sort of plan for wearing protective equipment with his phasing, and then that didn't turn out to be the case at all. So my concerns originally were that we were hearing more and more reports that business owners were being blamed for trying to take precautions to protect their patrons. People were wiping their noses on employee shirts and generally abusing them. And I felt like this was a role where the city needs to take a leadership role in public health protections because that's what we're elected to do. And we have the access to uh, planning and staff to implement it in a reasonable way. So I wanted to make sure that the city was an active participant in this from a public health standpoint. More recently, with the phased opening and steps that we've been taking, it's become evident that we're not going to go right back to the way things were safely. We're going to have to start making changes and kind of recognize that there is the risk of the COVID-19 epidemic, but there's also the necessity of maintaining an economy and helping small businesses achieve the success that they need at this point. And I think this is a crucial step in all of that because businesses can't afford to lose employees due to an outbreak. Can't afford to have manufacturing plants or stores closed because multiple employees were suddenly caught with the COVID-19, whether or not it's fatal. They still are out sick. So there is that element of risk. And then additionally, the danger to our senior residents. Nashua has a large senior population. And while we've seen in New Hampshire most of the fatalities taking place in assisted living facilities, that's because those are facilities where individuals have no choice but to share air in a common HVAC system, work with common denominators like staff and share food and all that kind of stuff. So they're by far the most at risk, but we have a large number of senior housing programs too. When this was reviewed by the Board of Health, all three medical doctors on the board unanimously supported this. Their questions weren't about whether or not this was a good move. It was whether this would be adequate to fully protect us or not. There's a lot of discussion about the changes that COVID-19 has taken. Being a recently discovered and newly emerging disease, we had no idea even 3 months ago that infants and toddlers would be showing inflammation syndromes where they could potentially lose limbs and have lifelong impairments. We didn't know that younger people who we thought were just asymptomatic and not at risk were starting to present a higher occurrence of heart stroke and arrhythmia and risks like that. We have been proceeding along the assumption that only a small percentage of elderly people would be impacted by this permanently, when the public health reality is that a huge number of people will be impacted either directly or directly, either fatally or in a manner that impairs them. So there's a tremendous amount of risk in reopening in the phased manner that we're doing, particularly here in Nashua. As Alderman Liu pointed out, as we start to have people eating outside and the weather turning nicer, you're going to see people coming from right over the border, which is one of the hot spots in the country, coming to check out what's going on, coming to experience their own return to quote normal. And that puts our business people at risk. That puts our local residents at risk. We already know that, in Mine Falls and other outdoor recreational facilities, there's a huge uptick in the number of Massachusetts plates that are coming over to use those facilities. And if we aren't careful in Nashua, we're going to open ourselves up to an unintended consequence. We start to phase the reopening up at the same pace as the rest of the state, and what's happening north of Concord isn't going to be the same as what's happening in Nashua. We're going to see more and more people coming and using these facilities. We can't put the genie back in the bottle. We need to make sure that businesses have a large enough population that they can serve to even pay for the expenses of reopening. We need to guarantee their success, and we also need to protect them and assume our own role as governors of Nashua. So I think it's important that we consider this. I think this is a situation where we have a clear signal from the Board of Public Health that this is something that's important. Their opinion is qualified. And in the meeting, the question was asked, to enable this, does the Board of Aldermen have to take action? And to enable this, and Attorney Bolton can correct me if I misspeak, both the Board of Public Health and the Board of Aldermen need to agree to enact it. Only one of those boards needs to decide to remove it. So if the Board of Public Health decides that the coast is clear, the ICU capacity is at a safe space, and we have something approaching herd immunity, or if some miracle vaccine is, I mean, I'm not going to put any faith in that, but if it happened, then we would be able to take corrective action, and there wouldn't be a huge amount of legislative process with which to do it. So I think it's important that we set this in place now in order to protect ourselves from the risk that we cannot reverse course on. And I think it's important that we keep in mind that our businesses need us to do this. They need us to protect their ability to do business, and they need us to do our roles that we've been elected to do.
All set, Alderman Lopez?
Yes.
Motion before us is for final passage. Is there further discussion on the motion?
Yes, Alderman, or President Wilshire.
Alderman Clemmons.
Thank you. My question, I have a question through you to Corporation Counsel. Can you clarify what the penalty is for this ordinance if it was to pass the way it is written tonight?
A court could impose a maximum of $1,000 fine. That is true for any violation of our code of ordinances, unless some other lesser fine is particularly established.
So to be clear, no one could be arrested for this.
A violation subjects someone to arrest. It does not subject them to a jail sentence. Presumably, if they were arrested, they wouldn't have to be arrested. They could be summoned. But if arrested, presumably they would get reasonable bail and be ordered to appear in court. My expectation is if there's a violation for mere failure to have a proper face covering, no one's going to be arrested for that. It would be where some further offense took place. Failure to leave premises when directed to do so could constitute a criminal trespass. If the police attempted to remove someone from a place where they weren't authorized to be because they weren't wearing a mask, you get in additional to criminal trespass. You very often see where the person resists arrest, perhaps assaults an officer, perhaps gets loud and belligerent to the disturbance of others, and you get a breach of the peace complaint at the same time. It would shock me entirely if someone were arrested merely for the face covering violation, and it would shock me entirely if someone on a first offense, when that was the only offense, were fined $1,000. And as I said, a jail sentence is not available for an ordinance violation.
Okay, thank you. Madam President, if I could continue.
Alderman Clemmons.
So my problem with the way that this is written right now is that there is no warning mechanism. There's no, it's basically up to the discretion of the court, up to what they're going to put the fine at. So I don't deny the fact that masks are important. I know some people have questioned the science behind it. I don't question the science behind it or anything like that. I would like to make a motion to amend, and I would amend the ordinance by saying that on offense, we give a warning. And on a second offense, we give a $25 fine. And that would be my motion.
I'm sorry, did you say $25 fine, Alderman Clemmons?
Yes.
Motion is to amend by adding first offense would be a warning, second offense would be a $25 fine. Discussion on the amendment? Anyone? Okay, would the clerk call the roll?
Alderman O'Brien. Alderman Clee.
Yes.
Alderwoman Kelly.
No.
Alderman Karen.
No.
Alderman Clemmons.
Yes.
Alderman Lopez.
No.
Alderman Tenza.
Yes.
Alderwoman Lou.
Yes.
Alderman Jettie.
Yes.
Alderman Schmidt.
No.
Alderman Harriet Gathright.
Sorry, yes.
Alderman Wilshire.
No.
I did not record Alderman O'Brien's vote. Did you hear that, President Wilshire?
I did not hear Alderman O'Brien.
I gave a yes to the clerk. Yes?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
I
Thank you.
have 7 yeas and 5 nays. I had to recalculate.
6 yeas, 5 nays?
7.
7 yeas and 5 nays.
Okay, well, that motion passes. So the motion before us now is for final passage of ordinance 2018 as amended. Further discussion on that motion.
Madam President, if I may.
Alderman Lopez?
Tenza.
Oh, sorry, Alderman
This
Tenza.
is Tenza.
All right.
Thank you. If I could too, there was make a subsequent follow-up motion. There was something that was sent around to all of us to look at what the ordinance is or what the executive order is down in Massachusetts. And one of the things that stuck out at me is that as this ordinance is written in Nashua, you would have to provide, if you had some kind of medical issue where you couldn't wear a mask, you would have to provide proof of that medical issue. Presumably now, after the first or second time that you were stopped and questioned about why you didn't have a mask on, I would just like to make an amendment to the ordinance so that you are not required, if you have a medical condition, not required to show proof of that medical condition for not wearing a mask.
Okay. Did you get that, Madam Clerk?
I believe it was to further amend that if you have a medical condition that you are not required to show proof.
Correct.
Madam President? Jan? Alderman Schmidt? Thank you.
Alderman Schmidt.
Item number 7 says that a face covering is not required to be worn by any person if said person can show a medical professional has advised that wearing a face covering may pose a risk to said person for health reasons. Is that what you wanted to change?
Alderman Tenza?
Tenza?
Yes, just the language that they have to, it appears they have to have some documentation on them in order to justify not wearing a mask. I think that may be difficult and onerous for some people. Again, this was, consistent with what the Massachusetts executive order says. I thought that was a good idea, so I'm making the suggestion.
Okay, you've heard the
Madam
amendment.
Madam
President
President?
Wilshire, Steve Bolton, may I say something?
Attorney Bolton.
This amendment, the proposal will have to go back to the Board of Health. It is such a substantive change. It doesn't just change the penalty. It changes substantively what is required. The other thing, it doesn't require that it be on the person at the time. It certainly, if one were able to show it to a police officer or whomever, it would probably prevent any summons. But it sets up an affirmative defense if, in fact, summoned. I expect the police would deal with that by if you showed up at the station the next day, or if you showed up in court at the time you were summoned to appear and had the documentation, they would dismiss the case right there. So I'm not sure it's as onerous as some might think. But we're trying to do things in a hurry, I gather. And I just want everyone to know that this is a change from what the Board of Health adopted. It will have to go back to the Board of Health before it can take effect.
Madam President?
Alderman Clee.
Thank you. I want to make two comments. One is I would have a little bit of anxiety about making this change anyway, because the truth, if someone wanted to defy this order, all they have to say is, I have an existing condition. And not that I don't believe that we should trust everybody who speaks, but that's the reality of the world. And I feel like we're setting ourselves up for failure, and we're setting up the restaurants and the retailers and so on who truly do want this. I have heard from a lot of them. The other thing is, and I don't know if there's anybody here who can answer this, when we talk about the face covering of the nose and the mouth, it was brought up at another meeting today, and I believe that it was from someone from the Board of Health that said when they think about the face covering for the nose and the mouth, they exclude the check valve mask that something like the firefighters and someone had, that would not be the same because that expels the vapors and so on, and the droplets. So I want to know is, maybe Attorney Bolton can answer this. Does this sufficiently exclude the ones with the check valve masks? They do cover the nose and the mouth. They are a covering in that respect, but they don't stop the expelling of that of the
There's a
vapors, which is what I'm-
definition provided as to what face covering means for this purpose. And it has to be made of cloth, fabric, or soft permeable material without holes. It covers only the nose, mouth, and surrounding areas of the lower face. My interpretation is valves of the sort being described would not meet that definition.
That's perfect. That's what I just wanted to make sure that it did not. So it does exclude the ones with the valve in it. And I appreciate that. And I do want to also express my concern if we just said that basically anybody can walk up and say, I have a medical condition. And trust me, as a woman who had a mother who was severely asthmatic, she would not be able to wear a mask. So I completely understand. And I know there are a lot of people in that, even some on our board, that would have that issue, but I don't want to put that provision in here.
Madam President?
Alderman Lopez.
I just wanted to second what Alderman Clee was saying. I would be concerned if we removed, or if we gave the opportunity for someone to say, to just verbally state that, oh, I have a medical condition, therefore I can't, because your mileage varies greatly with definition of medical professional or medical individual, and you can state whatever you want to an officer on the spot. I do understand that it might be onerous for somebody to carry proof of a medical condition requiring an exception to the face mask rule. But I think number one, if you are not wearing the face mask, either it's onerous to carry a face mask, or it's onerous to carry a piece of paper saying you don't need a face mask. But there's some equality there. And then I think it puts our law enforcement in an unfair position to just say that anybody can deny the need for a face mask without really having to prove it. So if there's already a stipulation in there that it can be provided at a later date, then I think that's reasonable.
Further discussion on the motion to amend?
Yeah. Madam Chairman?
Alderman Jettie.
Yes, thank you. I'm not going to support Alderman Tenz's amendment. Remembering that the Board of Health has brought this to us as a recommendation for protecting the public. Not only the employees who are working in the restaurants or the retail establishments, but the customers who are going to these places. I mean, wearing a mask, as I understand it, and it's you both have to have a mask for it to be really effective. And for people who cannot tolerate a mask, no one's forcing them to go to a restaurant or a retail establishment. If they cannot tolerate the mask, they have a choice of avoiding those places and not going there in the first place. And as far as protecting the rest of the public, the majority of people who can wear a mask, I mean, allowing people who can't tolerate a mask to be unmasked is putting the rest of the population at risk. So I'm not in favor of this amendment.
Anyone else on the amendment?
I'd like to speak to it, please.
Alderwoman Lou.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that I've spoken with a lot of people in my area, my ward. I read the numerous emails we received, and I just want to say that I really like that so many people took the time to communicate with us about their feelings about this ordinance. And I feel that it was pretty evenly, pro, for and against. My feeling, I'm going to vote for it, and the reason why is that the employees have to wear masks, and that's because they'll protect us. And I think that in order to protect the employees, we need to legislate that people that come into the shops need to wear masks as well for the employees' protection. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Lou. Anyone else on the motion to amend by not having to show a medical reason? Anyone? Seeing none, would the clerk call the roll on the amendment?
Alderman O'Brien.
No.
Alderman Clee.
No.
Alderwoman Kelly.
No.
Alderman Karen.
No.
Alderman Clemmons.
Yes.
Alderman Lopez.
No.
Alderman Tenza.
Yes.
Alderwoman Lou.
No.
Alderman Jettie.
No.
Alderman Schmidt.
No.
Alderman Harriet Gathright.
No.
Alderman Wilshire.
No.
You have 2 yeas and 10 nays.
And that amendment fails. So we're back to the final passage of ordinance 2018 as amended.
Alderman Wilshire, can I speak, please?
Alderwoman Kelly.
Sorry, this is bedtime, so I apologize. So I appreciate the comments that have come through. I had a couple of comments that have now come and gone, but I think that there have been a lot of voices in this and a lot of really great communication from our city, and I appreciate that the Board of Health is recommending this, so I'm supporting this. And we had earlier discussions before the state did some of the things that they did. One of the things I'm most concerned about is tourism is our #1 industry here in New Hampshire, and people are going to start coming to our state. And by all means, I'm not saying close our borders, but I think anything we can do to make us safer and help our community get through this, it makes a lot of sense. That being said, I did not care for the amendment to make the first offense a warning. I think we need to strike a balance where people will want to follow this. So I would like to move to amend and make the first offense a written warning and the second a $100 fine.
The motion is to further amend by changing the $25 fine to a $100 fine. Discussion on that motion.
And I said specifically to make the first one a written warning.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, a written warning. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So the motion is to have a written warning for the first offense and a $100 fine for the second offense and subsequent. Alderwoman Kelly?
Is that how it was originally intended? If I could potentially ask that to Alderman Clemens through you.
Yes.
That's fine.
So it would be a $100 fine for a second offense and any subsequent offenses. Any further,
Yes.
any discussion on that motion to amend?
Madam President,
Alderman O'Brien,
thank you. Question to corporate counsel through the chair, if I may.
you may.
What does, in this type of circumstance, what does a written warning actually mean? Is it, hate to say it like, in St. Peter's Grammar School, it's a part of your permanent record. But the thing is, will the police compile this? So if a scoff law receives 2 or 3 of these, like the motor vehicles, if you get a warning that is on record within motor vehicles, is there a bureaucracy attached to this? Somebody to do the paperwork on a written warning is my question.
I am sure the police have no procedure for keeping track of warnings of ordinance violations. I think it's up to the discretion of individual police officers to give a warning, and the next police officer won't be aware of what the previous police officer did as far as an individual. I cannot believe that there's going to be any money spent to keep an electronic record of warnings, be it written or oral, for ordinance violations like this.
Madam President,
Alderman Schmidt.
thank you. I honestly don't think there should be any specific punishment on this ordinance. I think if someone is in a shop, they're refusing to wear a mask, and the police are called, I think it should be a disorder. I think they are being disorderly, and I think the law will already manage that rather than to put all kinds of punishments in this. Just my opinion.
Thank you, Alderman Schmidt. Anyone
Can I
else?
reply? Can I respond?
Alderwoman Kelly.
Yeah, just I was wondering, I mean, I sort of agree with you, Alderman Schmidt, but I would prefer something to nothing. I was looking at what they do in Massachusetts, as that's been brought up a couple of times, and they do an up to $300 fine. So that was where my number wasn't just out of the air.
Alderwoman Kelly, what do you think about the written first offense? If, as the attorney stated, they're not going to keep track of those offenses anyway, how would we know there was a first offense?
We can take that off if we think it's too much paperwork for the police. I don't think we're definitely not trying to be punitive to anybody specifically. I'm concerned that if it's just a verbal warning and $25, that makes it a lot easier for individuals to be a little bit more loose about it.
Madam
Not much
President,
more than
may
a
I
parking
speak?
ticket.
Alderman Clee.
Yes, I did support Alderman Clemens' amendment for the first offense is a warning and so on. But after hearing Attorney Bolton say that the police will not have really a means of being able to do this, it seems like a moot point to even have had that amendment. And to the point that Alderman Schmidt made, that we, you know, it's basically disorderly conduct kind of thing, and we already have something in place with that. I'm wondering if we should review the amendment. I don't know if that's even possible or something to do. I think we're taking away the whole idea of this is to hopefully to get people to do the right thing, and if they don't, give some teeth to the point of where, as what Alderman Schmidt said, that it's a disorderly issue and let it go as that. I don't believe for 1 second that he was going to get $1,000 fine, nor do I believe that they're going to be doing any jail time. So I'm not sure where to go at this point, but perhaps we should revisit the amendment from Alderman Clemens.
Okay, Alderman Clee, where we have an amendment before us for a written warning on the first offense and $100 for second offense and any subsequent offenses. That's the motion before us. Any further discussion on the motion to make that amendment?
So, Madam President,
Alderman Tenza?
yes, thank you. Just briefly, my experience with the police department has been that any citizen contact or most citizen contact that they have is recorded someplace at the police department through their internal transmission system. So it's easy enough for them to say, to radio in and say, I'm with Joe Schmo here at Shaw's. He doesn't have a mask. I'm giving him a warning. I don't think that would be sufficient for a written warning requirement, but I think the police department probably would be able to track fairly easily first warning and then any subsequent warning if folks have a concern about that.
Thank you, Alderman Tenza.
Can
Anyone
I get a
else?
clarification, please?
Alderwoman Kelly.
Alderman Tenzer, are you saying that they wouldn't necessarily need to have a written to do the protocol you just suggested?
Alderman Tenza?
That's my suggestion, is that giving them a written ticket or something like that is one thing, but they can keep an internal record of their contact with someone fairly easily, just as they do when they pull someone over or have do field interviews with people on a regular basis.
All said, Alderwoman Kelly?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so the motion to amend is for a written warning on the first offense, $100 on the second, and any subsequent offenses. Seeing no further discussion, will the clerk call the roll on the amendment?
Alderman O'Brien,
Yes.
Alderman Clee,
Yes.
Alderwoman Kelly,
Yes.
Alderman Karen,
No.
Alderman Clemens,
No.
Alderman Lopez,
Yes.
Alderman Tenza,
No.
Alderwoman Lou,
No.
Alderman Jenny,
I'm sorry.
Alderman Jettie,
Yes.
Alderman Schmidt,
Yes.
Alderman Harriet Gathright,
No.
Alderman Laws, Wilshire,
No.
I have 6 yeas and 6 nays.
And that motion fails. Motion before us is for final passage of ordinance 2018 as amended. Further discussion on that
Madam
motion.
President,
Madam President,
Alderman Clee.
thank you. I think I'd like to go back to Alderman Clemmons' motion amendment, and I would like to ask to have it removed.
So you're making a motion to take out the amendment,
Yes, please. Thank you.
reconsider the amendment. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Anyone have any discussion on that?
Yes,
Yes,
President.
I do too.
Okay. Alderman Clemmons.
Yeah, so my concern with taking out the amendment without the warning. Now, I completely understand the wanting to have, the disorderly conduct. So in other words, if a business has a policy that, or we have the ordinance that says you have to have a mask on, and a person comes in and they refuse to wear a mask, and not only are they just refusing to wear the mask, but they're being belligerent, or, they're throwing stuff or threatening people or whatever, that to me is a separate crime. And that's a crime that's already on the book. So, I think in those particular situations, even if we were to not pass this and a business had a policy where they required a mask and somebody refused to wear it, I believe that the police could be called down and have that person removed from their property, because they're violating the business owner or the property owner's wishes. So my fear in removing the warning is that if we do that, then we're leaving it up to a court to decide. Well, first, we're leaving it up to a court to decide if they're going to fine somebody, and two, we're clogging the court. Now, again, if there is other disturbances and things like that, then you would call the police anyway, for that. So my fear is somebody coming from Massachusetts who doesn't know the rules, or somebody coming from Hollis or some other part of New Hampshire where they don't have this, and they're innocent, they don't know, and they come into Nashua and they're not aware of this, and we want to educate people. We don't want to be punitive to people. So my thought is give people a warning, and if they're a repeat offender, then they're a repeat offender, and we give them a small fine to make sure that they comply. But that's my thoughts. So I won't be supporting the motion to remove the amendment.
Who was next? Anyone else?
Harry, yes.
Alderman Gathright.
I agree with Alderman Clemmons with this issue. I would not be supporting that as well, removing the First Amendment. I do believe that there should be some type of, even though it's small, but it's still a penalty attached to this bill, to this ordinance.
Okay. Further discussion?
Yes.
Alderman Clemmons.
Thank you. Well, just to clarify, my concern is not that. My concern is that if we put a penalty, if we remove this amendment, the penalty could be large. It could be huge. It could be $500. It could be $1,000. And we can't. If we pass it like that, we cannot guarantee that won't be the penalty. And so that by putting in a warning and by putting in the $25, we have a penalty. So if the idea is we don't want a penalty, then we can make an amendment to say that there will be no penalty to this. But I don't I can't imagine that that's what we want to do either. So that's why I suggested the warning and the $25 was because I don't want to see it be a punitive penalty on people who really can't afford it or who didn't know, or whatever the case may be.
Well, I think Alderman Clemmons that, if we pass this ordinance, that there would be something that we could put downtown or near the restaurants that say, per NRO, you have to wear a mask. So, even if you're from out of town or from Nashua, most people will see that and realize that masks need to be worn. Okay, further discussion on
Madam President, I have my hand up, sorry.
Alderman Lopez.
I just wanted to point out that while I understand what Alderman Clemmons is saying about people not knowing and then coming to Nashua and finding out, the reverse is true too. If you set the fine too small, no one's really going to know about it. Versus if it's $1,000, then they're definitely going to know about the potential of that. But I have a lot more faith in our police officers and our judicial system, I think. As Attorney Bolton said, and Chief Kerrigan did say that this would be very carefully managed in the public health meeting, and that he wasn't going to have officers out looking for people. It was going to be more like if it was creating an issue and to empower business owners. So I think leaving the concept of disorderly conduct intact is fair, as Alderman Smith suggested. And at the same time, having a maximum penalty gives the court system and the police the latitude to actually use their own discretion. Because I'd also hate to see a bunch of people come and plan to pay $25 in order to make a demonstration or inconvenience others, or just because they can afford that easily and therefore they can afford to flout laws that people who don't have money can't.
Madam President?
Alderman Clay.
Thank you. And I think Alderwoman Lou also had her hand up. But the whole premise behind this is exactly what Alderman Lopez had said. And it's not to be punitive, it's not to be, but we are a border state to Massachusetts. And my anxiety, I had a major anxiety attack the weekend before the malls were opening up, because I saw the numbers of Lowell and Lawrence. And while those numbers do seem to be going down, they're still the third highest. And knowing that we are kind of the gateway to New Hampshire, where people are going to be coming to go on vacation and to do everything else such as that, I think as long as we have signage that says you cannot enter without, enter this premises without a mask, we're letting them know that. And if we tell businesses that they have to put that up in their window, or recommend it, or however it is that we want to do this, I think that's a good idea. I actually think we're building in a true punitive by saying a warning and then a $25 fine. It's almost making it mandatory. So I guess I do have voters' regret when I voted for it the first time. I would rather just leave it as is. It become more of a disorderly conduct type of thing. And while, yes, we all know the $1,000 fine is sitting there, I seriously doubt it's going to be implemented. So I don't believe that someone is going to be in harm's way. And I just would like it to go through as clean and so on. And I will stop talking now. Thank you.
Alderwoman Lou.
Thank you. Through you to Attorney Bolton, if I could, just does a store owner have the right to ask someone to leave their store?
Attorney Bolton?
Most often the answer is yes.
Okay.
If the patron, well, I didn't hear that way.
Sorry. If they had a sign at indicating mask required, would they have a right to ask the person to leave?
Yes, I was going to add in my answer to the previous question. Under ordinary circumstances, the proprietor or manager of business property can refuse to serve anyone. There are certain bad reasons which you cannot exercise that right. Suspect class, But in the case of a refusal to wear a mask, if it's required by law or required by the property owner, by the business itself, yes, they can say, these are our regulations. If you come into my store or my restaurant, we're going to require you to wear a mask when you're in close proximity to others, or there's any likelihood you'll be in close proximity to others. Or we require you to wear a mask at all times. And yeah, and then the store owner, at that point, if the person refuses to comply and refuses to leave, that becomes a criminal trespass.
Thank you. So the way I see this is, somebody walks into a shop without a mask. They're asked to leave. They leave. They're asked to leave because there's an ordinance in town that requires masks. They don't leave. They become disorderly. I mean, or their police officer is asked to help, and it doesn't even have to become a fine for that, for violating that ordinance. The person has become disorderly. So
And
I
as
don't
I said
know.
before, typically arrests in these kinds of situations result not from the original violation, but from the escalation of bad conduct. So the breach of the peace, the criminal trespass, the assaulting a police officer, the assaulting of the store manager, the resisting arrest, and any of those things are not unlikely to become packaged together.
Thank you, Attorney Bolton. I hope those things don't begin to happen too often. But my thoughts are just, who goes out in this climate and thinks maybe they don't have to wear a mask somewhere? I don't think many people would be surprised to find that we're in ordinance. What?
I have gotten more communications than the Board of Aldermen has about people who intend to do that. If this passes, I will be going downtown. I will be not wearing a mask, and I dare you to do something about it. I've got that type of communication. So I do expect there'll be some testing of this.
And my feeling, my point is that it won't be harmless ignorance that causes this, but maybe something else. I just don't think there are many people that are not aware of the need to wear masks. And I don't know that we have to belabor how it's going to be addressed, because I think that our police officers do a really good job of using their fine discretion. Thank you.
Madam President?
Alderman Clay.
Thank you. I wanted to mention one other thing, and I don't know if it's germane to what I've just, the amendment that I've got sitting there, but kind of to answer some of the questions that have been done. That I've spoken to a number of businesses. Now, while I've not spoken to every business that we have in Nashua, the businesses I have spoken to want this ordinance to help support them. And I can give you one instance. There was one business that, when retail was starting to open up, put a sign in their window that basically said, no shirt, no shoes, no mask, no service. And they got phone calls that said, you don't have the right to do that. It's my constitutional right, and so on. This was kind of even brought up to the governor. And they said to the governor, a lot of businesses would like this to be done. And he said that he did not want to mandate this, but that he understood, especially those cities and towns that were right on the border of Massachusetts or any other, did that. And he could see that the need for it. He still did not mandate it, but the businesses want it. And I think this is our way of also supporting the businesses by saying it. We're supporting those people that are frail, that want to go out of their house. I mean, the governor said that those employees have to wear it. So why wouldn't we want to protect those employees by us wearing it? And I can tell you, I've been in stores where people are not doing social distancing, and I've been to different places where they're not doing social distancing and they don't have masks on. I find it very offensive because I always wear a mask. I even walked out of a store today, got into my car, and my husband said to me, "Why do you still have your mask on?" I went, "I do." I'm getting to the point now where it's almost becoming like putting on lipstick. It's just part of my, and I'm claustrophobic, so I've gotten past that. I just think that we're doing it to support businesses. I don't want anything punitive to happen. And I pray that these people don't come and protest and just because they can. We are a live free or die state, but we also have to think about all of our citizens. And I think that's what this does. It's caring for somebody else, not just for myself, but for somebody else. So.
For the record, Alderman Dowd has joined us at 8:30. Any further discussion on removing the the warning and the $25 fine? Alderman Jettie.
If I could, Madam President, through you, if I could ask Attorney Bolton,
Sure.
when Alderman Kelly made the motion to amend by providing for a written warning, you expressed some misgivings about that. How do you feel about this Alderman Clemens's verbal warning? What are your thoughts on that?
I think both the written and the verbal warning basically renders the entire thing unenforceable. I do not think it will be easily proven that someone was given a warning, whether written or verbal, for a prior offense. I just don't see careful enough records being kept. I don't see one police officer knowing what other police officers have previously done. So that's my opinion. It renders the measure unenforceable, written or oral.
Could I follow up, Madam President?
Alderman Jettie, yes.
So I'm wondering if I could. I'm wondering what the purpose of the warning is, as contained in Alderman Clemens's amendment, because as I understand it, if someone comes to a restaurant, for example, and is not wearing a mask, I would assume that they would be told that that there's an ordinance requiring that you wear a mask, and I understand that businesses have been provided through the state free masks they can use to in order to protect their employees and their customers. So I kind of envision that if somebody shows up at a restaurant not knowing that they need a mask, that they would be told that they need a mask, and they don't have one, they would be handed one. If they don't want to wear it, then they could leave. So I guess I'm inclined to vote in favor of eliminating the written warning part of this. If I understand, reducing the fine to $25 or $100 to avoid the specter of a larger fine that some people might find offensive. I could probably support something like that, but as far as this motion to reconsider Alderman Clemens's motion, I will vote for that.
Anyone else?
President Wilshire,
Yes.
may I speak?
Alderman Clemens.
Thank you. So I didn't want to go down this road, but apparently I see it going there. So Attorney Bolton alluded to this earlier, with the people contacting him saying that they will go downtown to violate the ordinance on purpose and things like that. The purpose of me making my amendment was twofold. One is I don't think $1,000, an up to $1,000 fine is appropriate. Two, I really do believe that a warning system, that giving somebody basically the benefit of the doubt, is important. And I think that, I think absent that in the legislation, it gives too much leeway, in my opinion. But my concern is we are going to attract an element downtown into City Hall that if we just make this with the, if we just make this, have the warning and a $25 fine, they might not feel that it's worth giving us as much attention. And what I mean by that is I can see, as other states have witnessed, and even New Hampshire to some degree up at the State House, I can see Nashua becoming a target of right-wing folks who want to demonstrate that they believe that this is unconstitutional. And I can see them demonstrating with their firearms and things like that outside of City Hall, because we're going to make Nashua a target for them to stand up for their beliefs and their causes. Now, now that's fine. They have the right to do that. But as we are trying to pass things that make Nashua a friendly place to do business and a friendly place to come downtown to eat and dine, bring your family, things like that. If we have people like that protesting outside of City Hall every day, it's not exactly the place that I want to go with my family, and I might think otherwise to come to Nashua. So I really feel that we are putting ourselves on the map as a target if we make this have a fine up to $1,000 and no warning. Whether or not the police give a warning to everybody, or whether or not, they are a little bit more lenient. The fact of the matter is, if we leave in that potential, we are going to make ourselves a target of these folks. Mark my words.
Alderman Lopez.
I think if we as legislators signal to the community that we are going to not make policy based on what's best for our community and what public health professionals and doctors recommend, and if we signal that will all take a back seat to anybody from anywhere coming in inflicting their views on our community, then that makes us a target, rather than us trying to focus on a pandemic that's happening and the risk that is inherent in spreading diseases that is a biological fact versus a subjective possibility. I don't think that a warning or a smaller fine that is characterized publicly as intentionally to avoid a conflict is going to do anything of the kind. I think you've just signaled that if there's a certain amount of escalation, then policy will back down to that. One of the principles of any kind of de-escalation is if you set a ground rule at the beginning for good reasons, you don't back down in the middle of the escalation. You stay consistent and you continue because that was the rule that was set. Otherwise, you're following the escalation path. So I can't necessarily see us as enacting an ordinance where the police have the latitude to say, okay, well, this is a misunderstanding. You didn't know, but you do now. So as long as you're willing to, follow along with it, then, response can be minimal versus a bunch of people coming deliberately to provoke a response. I think limiting or neutering that response is irresponsible.
All set, Alderman Lopez?
Yes.
Alderman Dowd?
Yes, sorry I'm joining the meeting late. The planning board got delayed because of a technical difficulty and we just went through the school portion. So if I could have Ms. Lovering please read the amendment that we are addressing now. I can understand the comments, but I'd like to know exactly what the wording is, the amendment.
The amendment that passed earlier was to include a first offense as a warning and a second offense and any subsequent offenses to be a $25 fine.
And the current motion is to rescind that we've already voted on, rescind that amendment.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Alderman Clay.
Thank you so much, Madam President. I wanted to make two comments. One is I wholeheartedly agree with what Alderman Lopez said about if we start making legislation based on threats or fear that someone is going to protest what we do, then we might as well just put everything on the ballot or just not even be here. It kind of it renders us impotent in so many ways. The other thing I wanted to mention is that the United Way, and I've been working with them since Monday, that right in front of City Hall, they've been giving away hundreds and hundreds of masks. The first day, I know we gave 650 masks. We've been giving them to anybody who comes, 3 per person to the family. They've now expanded that. Starting on Tuesday, they're going to be at Railroad Square and City Hall giving away masks. The businesses do have masks. I'm sure that many of them want to do it. I don't think if someone showed up without a mask, they would be turned away. I'm sure that the businesses would have something. And I can tell you, we're flanking both ends of Main Street to make sure that people have masks. United Way has really stepped up in incredible and helping in this way. So I don't think the fact that someone doesn't have a mask is going to become an issue. But I want to say very strongly that we can't give in to the possibility of threats. And I mean no disrespect to Alderman Clemens, but I do have 2 comments. And one is that just passing this ordinance alone without a fine, without a warning, in my opinion, is still going to bring those same people out. And to be honest with you, in some respects, this was instigated by a Facebook post that said that this was ridiculous and so on. So again, I mean no disrespect. I'm just being very honest. Thank you.
Anyone?
Alderman Wilshire?
Alderwoman Kelly.
Yes, thank you. I wanted to address something that was said a couple of comments ago about giving people the benefit of the doubt. I trust our police. I trust them to have that wherewithal when we're interfacing with people. That's what they do all the time. They're a great force. And so I think that that's sort of a moot point. And then the last thing I would say is I think the intent of this from the Board of Health and in general, I think the board here understands is that we want to make it easy to wear a mask and not so easy not to wear a mask. And that is it. We want to make it easy for you to help support people like myself. I've got a baby. I have asthma. People on the board like that, your neighbor, your friend who's over 55. It's not a hard thing. Put a mask on, and we're making it very easy to get them. You can come to City Hall and get them. There's a whole group that is distributing cloth masks if you need them. And that is all I have.
Anyone else? The motion is to reconsider the amendment by removing the warning and the $25 fine. Okay, so that's the motion. Will the clerk call the roll?
Alderman O'Brien,
No.
Alderman Clee,
Yes.
Alderwoman Kelly,
Yes.
Alderman Dowd,
Alderman Dowd, you're muted.
Sorry, yes.
Alderman Karen,
Yes.
Alderman Clemmons,
No.
Alderman Lopez,
Yes.
Alderman Tenza,
No.
Alderwoman Lou,
Yes.
Alderman Jettie,
Yes.
Alderman Schmidt,
Yes.
Alderman Harriet Gathright,
You're muted, Linda. Alderman Gathright, you're muted. Alderman Gathright?
No. Did you hear me?
I did, thank you.
Now.
Okay.
Alderman Wilshire,
Yes,
you have 9 yeas and 4 nays.
and that motion carries. We are back to the original ordinance for final passage. Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you. I would like to thank everybody for their discussions on this and the various different motions that were presented. But in my communication with people down on Main Street in particular, what is our responsibility of aldermen was really not to punish, but to educate. And the thing is, now we're right back to square zero, and we're talking $1,000 fine. And if you really want to get the quills up of with a porcupine, you poke them with a stick. And I think in this case, we have the $1,000 fine. Granted, I agree with Attorney Bolton in his assessment that many courts probably it won't really get to that far. But the thing is, I think it was our duty to be practical with it. So therefore, that's why I supported Alderman Clemmons' point of view. However, the ends do justify the means. And we're talking about a virus that has debilitating effect. And coming from my fire department background, if you lived in a single family home and you chose not to have a smoke detector, well, you were foolish, but that's your home was your castle. That was your choice. But in the situation of a duplex, your actions could definitely affect somebody else. So weighing the balance of this particular ordinance, although I'm very disappointed to see that there was some lightening that was not voted for on this, and we're back to the $1,000 fine and its potential. I am going to support this ordinance because I feel we need to protect the weakest amongst us, the people away from this terrible virus. And again, disappointed, but I'm going to support the motion.
Alderman Dowd.
Yes, I would have been more in favor of the motion or the amendment if there was no warning, because who's going to track the warnings? You know, and I don't think that's practical. And first of all, I don't think the police are going to be walking around trying to find somebody because they don't have a mask. I think I heard when I first came on that the issue is going to be we're backing up the businesses who the Board of Health has said if you want to be in business, you have to require masks. If we back up the Board of Health and somebody pushes their way into a restaurant or a store refusing to wear a mask, they're not going to be fined for not wearing a mask. They're going to be fined for trespassing or disorderly conduct, and which has a different type of fine structure. And maybe even an arrest. So if people want to stay 6 feet from people and they're not in a restaurant or a store and they don't want to wear a mask, fine. Let them. But if they get within 6 feet of people or they're downtown, they want to go in a restaurant or a store, at least for the time being, they need to wear a mask. That's my opinion. I would support something that reduced the fine structure, as $1,000 is a pretty steep fine, but I really don't see
the police going around and fining people because they don't have a mask on.
Anyone else? Alderman Lopez.
I just want to reiterate that my understanding, and Attorney Bolton, please correct me if I'm wrong, but the ordinance stipulates up to $1,000. It doesn't stipulate $1,000, so a lot of room for discretion there.
Okay. Alderman Schmidt.
Thank you. I just wanted to make it clear that nobody's going to force people to go into shops. If you need something from a shop, you can pick it up curbside. You could have it delivered. This isn't like we're trying to force these onto people. It will be their choice, and it's for the safety of the other person. That's why you wear the mask, not for yourself, but for the other person. And I really only wanted to say one more thing. There were 9 more deaths in New Hampshire yesterday. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Jettie.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. If I could, through you, again, call upon Attorney Bolton. You know, and I'm sure we all have received, many emails from people on this issue. Pretty much, I think, pretty much evenly divided on one side of the other. But the people against this ordinance, and very passionately against it. And I want everybody to know that I read all of your emails, and I've received some phone calls. I must say, I don't think I've received as much communication about a proposed ordinance until back when Tobacco 21 was an issue. But the people who, some of the people who are against this ordinance, talk to, seem to basically have two major objections in different degrees, but they fall into two categories. One is that they don't think masks are effective, and that they're not going to do any good. And I must say that I rely upon our medical professionals on the Board of Health to guide us in that regard. And they are the people with the expertise. They've determined that this rule that they are, this is not something that the Board of Aldermen came up with. It's the Board of Health who wants to implement this rule, and they're asking the Board of Aldermen to approve it. So I bow to their expertise. If they say this would be an effective way of reducing the amount of exposure to this virus, then I believe them and I support them in that. The other category of objections to this are that questioning whether or not the Board of Health and the Board of Aldermen in Nashua have the authority to impose this ordinance to begin with. That it's unconstitutional, that it's a violation of people's rights. And I would ask Attorney Bolton if he could comment on the authority of the Board of Health and the Board of Aldermen to enact this ordinance, and whether or not that violates people's constitutional rights.
New Hampshire is what is known as a Dillon's rule state, which essentially means that the localities, the cities and towns, have only such power as the state legislature has granted them. In this case, the state legislature has granted cities the authority to enact health-related ordinances, rules, regulations, and bylaws. That's RSA 47:17. Now, in Nashua, pursuant to the city charter, which was also originally adopted by the state legislature, In section 79 of that charter provides that the Board of Health shall have control of and attend to all matters and perform all duties relating to public health, and shall perform such special duties as may be imposed upon them by ordinance or by the general statute of the state. Now, as part of that duties, the Board of Health is granted the authority to make such rules and regulations relating to the public health as in their judgment the public health and safety may require. All such rules and regulations shall be subject to the action of the Board of Aldermen approving the same. And that extends into Charter Section 81. That's what you're doing here tonight, considering whether you're going to approve a regulation already enacted by the Board of Health. So I don't believe there's any question that there's been a proper delegation by the state legislature of the authority to make rules, regulations that the Board of Aldermen then adopt by ordinance for the betterment of the public health. Now, we have loads and loads of public health related laws all over this country. There are laws requiring shoes and shirts in restaurants and in stores selling food. Those are laws. If this was unconstitutional, that would be. There are laws concerning the safety of food. There are laws concerning the wearing of head coverings by people who work in kitchens of restaurants. There are laws concerning requiring screens to separate out the condition of the kitchen from infestation by insects. There are laws requiring cleanliness in restaurant kitchens. There are laws concerning alcohol consumption in restaurants. There are laws concerning the disposal of rubbish and waste and leftover food from restaurants. It is inconceivable to me that all of these other laws can be held to be constitutional, and a face covering requirement in the face of a pandemic, which has now killed nearly twice as many people as we lost in all the years of the Vietnam War. All we have to do to pass constitutional muster is to have a reasonable goal that's reasonably achievable by the measures we're undertaking. The reasonable goal is to try and reduce the spread of the coronavirus. I'm not a doctor, I'm not an epidemiologist. People on the Board of Health who are doctors, and in their discussion of this last week, talked about the medical literature that they had read, and they believe that this would be effective to reduce the spread of this virus. I don't think there is a serious constitutional question at all.
Thank you.
You're on mute.
We'll get used to this. The motion is for final passage of ordinance 2018. Further discussion?
Yes, President Wilshire.
Alderman Clemmons.
So I will not be supporting this. I'm disappointed that I can't do so. But I cannot support something that potentially could give $1,000 fine to somebody. It's too much. Half the people in the city are not for this. I believe that it's going to create and invite chaos to the city. I think we could have done it better. So disappointingly, I am going to vote no.
Anyone else?
Madam President, if I could just speak briefly.
Alderman Tenza.
So I too, I don't think this is a question about whether people should wear masks. I think the science is clear. Everyone should wear a mask when they go out, especially when they're shopping in businesses and cannot maintain a social distance with other folks. But like Alderman Clemens, you know, and I think people realize this is a divisive issue. And I think that when I go out and when I go out in public, I wear a mask and I see the vast majority of people being responsible in wearing masks. Quite frankly, I thought long and hard about this issue. I watched the mayor's press conference this week, and one of the slides, one of the statistics that he showed was a statistic that said if 60% of the people wore masks that were 60% effective, then we could get a handle on this pandemic. I think people are doing that on their own. I think businesses are requiring workers and other folks entering their business to go in and wear masks. So again, I think the penalty could be steep. I think that it could be applied unevenly, and unfortunately, I can't support this either.
Okay. Alderman Lopez.
I think my experience might be different just because I'm in a different neighborhood, but I think this entire pandemic has been characterized by people not listening to public health officials, whether it was wash your hands, whether it was voluntarily enact social distancing. We've had to put markings on the floor of every grocery store. We had to limit the people who are allowed per square footage. We had to do a whole stay-at-home order. This has not been my experience that people have figured it out and said, all right, let's do what's right for everybody else. I think that the majority of people do in fact support the concept of helping others, but given the way virus transmission works and epidemiology works, you don't need the entire group to do it. You don't even need 60% of people in a room to wear masks. You kind of need 100%, because if that remaining 20% actually has COVID-19 and is asymptomatic, then all the efforts of everybody else is for naught. So while we go through the process of phasing our reopening, while our business owners are taking on the financial risk of opening their businesses and investing in new ways, whether it's umbrellas or buying tables or paying staff on the hope that people will come and patronize their businesses, I think we owe it to them to make sure that their investment is being supported. We cannot afford to have a second round of outbreak. And I don't think anybody who's lost family or friends to this thinks we could have easily afforded the first. And when I go out in public, I do not see more and more people wearing masks. I see people dropping their guard, trying to go back to normal, hoping this is all behind us, even though we know statistically it's not, even though the increased testing has actually showed that a lot less of New Hampshire had COVID-19 than we could have possibly anticipated. And that's a bad thing, because I think everybody was assuming, oh, I probably had it back in November or December, and therefore I'm immune. So when this crisis passes and when there's enough room in the hospital for the people who couldn't fight it off, I'll be okay and my loved ones will be okay because I've already had it. And as was discussed at the public health meeting, not only is that not the case in terms of how the individuals that are testing with antibodies are shaping up statistically, but we don't actually even know if antibodies do prevent a second infection or a third. We're seeing more and more evidence that this behaves in a bizarre way, where sometimes it looks like it's gone and it's not. Sometimes you did beat it off, but you don't have enough antibodies persisting in your system. There's not enough known about how this is cured or how this will be resolved, but we do know how we can prevent it. And one of the steps that we can do first and foremost in collectively trying to prevent this is listen to public health professionals and prioritize the need that they're communicating to us. Take this seriously. I think as aldermen, we have three choices. The first is we listen to public health professionals, we embrace what they're saying, and we act to support what they have asked us to do. Our second is ignore them. And our third, I don't know if this is worse than the last one or not, is hope the rest of the Board of Aldermen does our job for us so that we can walk that political line. I can't do that. I think this is a time where we need to signal to the public that we do support public health initiatives. And, for every frontline nurse that has listened to a bus honking or seen somebody flashing a light or holding a sign saying we support you, I think we owe it to them to actually do that. Actually walk the walk that we talk.
Okay, I have Alderman Schmidt.
Thank you, Madam President. Everybody is aware of the fact that the governor is working very hard on making sure that the reopening is working well. Everything is being very carefully studied, what can open when, why it's safer, using science to decide how to get us open again. If we don't do this right, we're going to have to go back to quarantine again. If we see the numbers continue to rise, even as they are right now, if we continue to see them rise, we would just go right back. And it's not going to help us. It's not going to help the businesses that are on the edge. It's not going to help the people who need jobs. We really do need to make people understand that in Nashua, we'd like you to wear masks. If you can't wear masks, then please stay away because you probably could cause more trouble for the entire state. Thank you.
Alderman Clee.
Madam President, I both Alderman Lopez and Alderman Schmidt said much of what I wanted to say. And the bottom line is masks is to prevent any spreading because you can be so asymptomatic and not even know whether or not you have it. And you could test tomorrow and I'm sorry, you could have tested today and tomorrow you could have contracted it. And unlike what Alderman Tenza has experienced, I have not experienced the majority of people wearing masks. I am in the grocery store and I actually spoke to Director Bagley because I had concerns about people going the wrong way in the grocery store and even doing a little bit of a cough. And today I even spoke to Mr. Ronan about the about that very thing and was told that you're okay as long as you didn't have a conversation with them, just passing them is okay. And I'm not as anxious as many people. We have so many vulnerable people that want to get out also. They don't want to be quarantined. They don't want to stay at home, but they want to know that when they go into the store, that it's not just the employees that are wearing the mask, but it's their fellow shoppers that are wearing masks and they're protected. I think we do this for the vulnerable. I don't think we're hurting anybody's rights. I don't believe for 1 second that $1,000 fine would be implemented because of this. I do think possibly a fine or whatever because of the disorderly conduct that someone wants to take a stance on. Um, any legislation can have unintended consequences. I don't think that's going to be the case here. I think if there's unintended consequences, I think it'll be intended because I think these people will possibly come and try to fight and try to argue and try to make their points. And I think we have to stay strong and we have to fight for those people who don't have those voices, those vulnerable people. We need to say to them, you are welcome. Everybody is welcome here in Nashua, but we do have laws. And I appreciated what Attorney Bolton said about having to wear hairnet and having to wear gloves and having to put up, screens to keep rodents and insects and so on. There's just common sense health laws that we put into place. And I think that's basically what I need to say.
Okay, Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you, Madam President. Boy, this is a tough one for me personally. Coming from the fire department, when I first started on the job, they never gave us any gloves, and we never had to wear the latex type of gloves. Somebody was actively bleeding, you stuck your hands right in it. You just did the job. Then along came other things, AIDS. I was around during the bird flu. Now, I agree with everything as far as the health reasons that they expressed with the COVID-19 and the dangers of it. But the thing is, my personal mantra is to educate, not to incarcerate. And I think the objective should have been, I wish we went with the compromise, should have been, you should wear a mask. If you gave a verbal warning to somebody, I wasn't looking for the penalty phase. The objective was here to provide a safe environment to the people. But now we're back to square one, where we have up to $1,000 fine on this. I would much rather stay with the educational part of it, because I agree with everything Alderman Lopez says and what the Board of Health says and the professionals. I am concerned about personal family members who are on the fire department that are exposed on a daily basis to the potential of this. But the thing is, it's education, and again, not the incarceration or the fear of penalty without fear or favor of a fine. And so therefore, I'm going to have to join my colleagues of Alderman Clemmons and Alderman Tenzer, and I'm going to join with them and vote against this. Thank you.
Alderman Gathright. Linda, you're muted.
Sorry about that. I just want to share some news with a 7-year-old child that was taken to Mass General, and she was infected by a loved one, a family member that didn't know they had the disease today in Nashua. So just much prayer for the mother that's devastated by all this. And I'm still struggling somewhat with the bill. I understand everyone's point of view. I really do believe that everyone should wear a mask. That's not an issue with me, but the issue is the money piece. So I'm still thinking about it. So I don't know what my vote's going to be right now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alderman
Dowd. Got Alderman Dowd and then Alderwoman Kelly.
Yes, you know, again, I don't think that anybody's going to be running around fining people $1,000, but I think that if we don't back up the restaurants and the store owners, two things can happen. One, other people that are going there see no masks, they're not going to go back. And it's going to be a financial hardship on the stores and the restaurants. And you only need one person that's asymptomatic, not wearing a mask, going in a crowded restaurant that could infect 40 or 50 people, and bang, we got a spark back up. You know, we don't know how long we'd have to keep this ordinance in effect, but right now it's a preventive measure. And it's recommended by the health professionals. And if we don't back up our Board of Health, my God, I mean, why do we even have them? You know, let's show them the support. They've been out in the front lines, risking their lives to the COVID-19, and they deserve our support. If somebody doesn't want to go downtown because they don't want to wear a mask, don't go downtown. Stay at home, or go somewhere else. But I think it's a small measure of safety to protect not only the age population who is really susceptible to it, and the people with certain conditions, but also children now. You know, children who have been around the COVID-19, the symptoms hit them much later. You know, they could be in a restaurant eating with somebody, and all of a sudden somebody comes in without a mask and they run right by him. And you could have a young child that dies. I think this is a small measure for us, for the safety of everyone in Nashua.
Come on, jeez.
So I'm going to support this.
Thank you, Alderman Dowd. Alderwoman Kelly.
Yes, thank you. I had two clarifications. Attorney Bolton, can you just clarify, it is not written in this ordinance that there would be up to $1,000 fine. That is just germane to any ordinance. Is that correct?
Yes, there's a provision in the Code of Ordinances that says unless another fine is specified, that any violation can be fined by no more than $1,000.
So it's not any more punitive than other ordinances on our book.
It's the exact same as throwing snow into the street.
Great. Thank you. I appreciate that analogy. The other thing I wanted to just point out, and then I know we've talked about this a lot, is that it also covers government buildings. Right? We've talked a lot about retail and being outside, but it also covers government buildings. And I know I've heard from my constituents about opening City Hall. So I would like us to reflect on that as well. Making sure that all of the people who work for our city are safe is top on my priority as well.
Okay, motion before us is for final passage of ordinance
President
2018.
President Wilshire,
Yeah,
may I speak?
Alderman Clemmons?
Yes, thank
Yes.
you. I just wanted to just follow up briefly on something that was insinuated by previous speaker, and that is that I make every decision that I make based on what I feel is the best thing to do for this city and for its residents. And I do not rely on other aldermen to make that decision for me. I listen to their opinions and I listen to the discussion at hand, and I listen to my constituents. I listen to science and ultimately make a decision on things. And so I just want everyone to understand that, you know, the decision that I am making this evening is an educated one on my part, because to me, it's a shame that we can't come to a lesser fine, an agreement on a lesser fine or a lesser penalty, or as Alderman O'Brien says, education. So that's the reason why. It's not that I deny the science, or it's not that I don't want to back up the Board of Health. It's not even that I don't want masks to be worn in city property. I think if we wanted to create a policy like that that was just independent of this, I would have no problem with that. So, you know, it's just, I just want everyone to understand that. So, thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Seeing none, the motion is for final passage of ordinance 2018. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman O'Brien,
A reluctant no.
Alderman Clee,
Yes.
Alderwoman Kelly,
Yes.
Alderman Dowd,
Yes.
Alderman Karen,
Yes.
Alderman Clemmons,
No.
Alderman Lopez,
Yes.
Alderman Tenza,
No.
Alderwoman Lou,
Yes.
Alderman Jettie,
Yes.
Alderman Schmidt,
Yes.
Alderman Harriet Gathright,
Yes.
Alderman Wilshire.
Yes,
You have 10 yeas and 3 nays.
and that motion carries. Ordinance 20-18 is duly adopted.
First reading of ordinance O 2016, relative to temporary 15-minute parking.
Alderman Tenza, do you have a motion?
Yes, Madam President, I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules for a second reading.
Motion is to suspend the rules. Discussion on that motion? Seeing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman O'Brien,
Yes.
Alderman Clee,
Yes.
Alderwoman Kelly,
Yes.
Alderman Dowd,
Yes.
Alderman Karen,
Yes.
Alderman Clemmons,
Yes.
Alderman Lopez,
Yes.
Alderman Tenza,
Yes.
Alderwoman Lou,
Yes.
Alderman Jettie,
Yes.
Alderman Schmidt,
Yes.
Alderman Harriet Gathright,
Yes.
Alderman Wilshire.
Yes,
I have 13 yeas and 0 nays.
and that motion carries.
Second reading of ordinance O 2016, relative to temporary 15-minute parking.
Alderman Tenza.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to make a motion for final passage of O 2016 by roll call vote.
Motion is for final passage of ordinance 2016. Discussion on that motion.
Alderman Wilshire, if I could.
Alderman Kelly.
Yeah, sorry, I wasn't fast enough. I was actually going to ask us to take them out of order, but this is fine. I just wanted to chat a little bit about the fact that if we do this one, then mine wouldn't make sense, or vice versa. So Tim and, I'm sorry, Director Cummings, myself, a number of people on the board have been talking to the business community about how we can help. I know that Director Cummings put in this 15-minute curbside. I think that's great. And then for, purposes of discussion and what I've been hearing, I put in free downtown parking for the duration of the time that we have those seats out, to really welcome people back and give that gesture of, we want you to come in today. So I think we just have to think about them both as we're discussing them. So I just wanted to that clear.
Okay. Anyone else?
President Wilshire?
Alderman Clemmons.
Thank you. I was very happy to have the conversation with Director Cummings about this proposal, the 15-minute parking. And because I feel that, during this, and it's a shame actually that it couldn't have come sooner, to be honest. But I'm glad that it's here now. Because to be honest, the businesses downtown have complained about hitting. And part of it is people that are just running into a restaurant to pick up takeout, or maybe they're going to the pharmacy, and they're in and out, and then they get a ticket. And so it doesn't really, it's not really business friendly, particularly when there's 20 open spaces downtown and they just pull in for a few minutes and hop in and out. So, and with the fact that most of the traffic that has been coming downtown has been to pick up takeout, and so the parking isn't the long-term type parking that normally we see in downtown. It is just the quick come and go. So I was very happy to sponsor this ordinance, because I think what it does is it takes into account the things that we have heard from business owners downtown, and particularly the stakeholders who are most affected by this type of business and this type of parking. And it strikes a balance with the purpose of charging for parking. And one of the concerns that I have with the other ordinance is that we could potentially lose a lot of money by doing that. With this ordinance, we are already blocking off a lot of parking spaces to accommodate restaurants so that they have outside seating. So to take the rest of the spaces that are along the way and make them the takeout spots, or just the 15-minute spots, I think is a good compromise measure that also strikes the balance of, we don't want to lose the revenue that we've been getting for the Downtown Improvement Committee and funding a lot of the things that are important to our downtown. So with all that being said, I was very happy to endorse this legislation, and I think it's a really awesome piece that came forward from having the type of community discussions that we've had around this, and I hope it passes tonight. Thank you.
Alderman Clay.
Thank you, Madam President. And I agree with what Alderman Clemens just stated. I think we're losing the parking basically on Main Street because we're doing this widening. And I think having this, as we saw earlier in the green areas being the takeout parking and so on, I think it was necessary to put in a 15-minute parking. And I don't think we should be penalizing someone who's just running in and taking something out. The key issue also is that this plan that we voted on also does not take away any of the handicap parking. It still remains, and that's not just limited to 15 minutes, as it always has been. And when I look at the fiscal note of this, and even though there's a potential of $14,000 to $57,000 loss in revenue, the next bill has a potential of 100,000 to 200,000 loss in revenue. I think that, this 14 to 57,000 will be gaining that and what we get for the businesses and so on. The other one, taking it a little bit further, to me is just, then the taxpayers are going to have to pick that bill up, and we're not supporting downtown. And there's $768,000 that have to go into the general fund. This should not hurt that. The other one could truly have a negative effect on it, but I won't talk about that. I am very much for this, and considering we've already voted for the narrowing, this just enhances that, and it helps because many businesses, I've been to a lot of those business economic meetings, and many of the businesses said that with this pandemic, they're really upping their takeout, and they've noticed more and more of it. And that was one of their concerns, that they were going to lose that business because people wouldn't have a place to stop. So when they developed this plan, they very, very carefully made sure that they put in this takeout parking or this 15-minute parking. It also allows for quick deliveries too. So I truly stand by this, and I'm proud to be an endorser of it. Thank you.
Alderman Lopez.
Yeah, so first of all, I just want to, what I don't want to know is how badly this is going to hurt the parking study, because we're going to have to tackle that eventually. But this is an opportunity again where, you have a forced change to pilot out different models of things that may or may not work. I think based on what the public health department is thinking and medical professionals, this is going to be the COVID-19 epidemic is going to impact our life at least until next winter, which is like the dead season downtown. And then likely into the beginning of the spring too. To create a vaccine, that doesn't mean it's distributed. So I think we're doing the right thing by encouraging creative thinking and approaches to problem solving. I think it will benefit businesses tremendously, especially in the colder months, to have a larger population of takeout and curbside pickup. Because I can't really see anybody like in November trying to sit out in Main Street. There may be diehards, but I think that's going to impact business as well. And while I hope that at that point something has changed, or there's a new dynamic, or we figured out new protections to allow for more inside dining, and these do exist. I think this is something we can immediately do that not only addresses the immediate need for business owners, but it may be something that we could maintain in the future. We could have multiple types of parking spaces that maybe we color them a certain way in the future, and we leave it for parking. Maybe it's something that businesses can apply for. So I like seeing changes in response to community needs. I think there may be the likelihood that some places are going to identify a need for longer term parking, longer than 90 minutes. I'm just starting to hear from restaurants now because they've only had people sitting down this past week. But Director Cummings has been doing a really good job with doing the phone conferences and trying to maintain some continuity of development between the different stakeholders downtown. And finally, I wanted to say it's very gracious of the Downtown Improvement Committee to support this, because their inclination, anybody's inclination, is I would prefer to have revenue that I can use to support the downtown businesses. In this case, they're doing something that's counterintuitive from that perspective, and they're really supporting downtown businesses by not collecting revenue. So I think that speaks highly of their attention to this crisis as it's unfolding, and I think this is a very good piece of legislation.
Okay. Anyone else? Alderman Schmidt.
Madam President, this is a perfect accompaniment to the previous bill, narrowing the road but leaving spaces for the 15-minute pickup, delivery. It's the perfect accompaniment to it, and I'm so grateful that this is brought forward. Thank you.
Alderman Jettie.
Yes, again, if I could, through you, ask Attorney Bolton another question. I'm keeping him
Yes.
busy tonight, helping him to earn his salary. As I read this ordinance, I don't see the part where it says that the 15-minute parking is free. Is that necessary, or did I miss something there?
If you look in the paragraph that says, now therefore be it resolved, in the third line down, about 2/3 of the way across, the 15-minute parking is free.
Okay, we're talking about 20-016, correct?
Yes, the first 4 paragraphs start off whereas. The 5th
Yes.
paragraph starts off, now therefore be it resolved.
Yes.
You're down 3 lines from there, about 2/3 of the way across. The 15-minute parking is free. That's what my copy says.
Okay, mine doesn't say that, so.
Mine does not say that either.
That's
Mine.
that's interesting.
We need to amend this one.
Are you all set, Alderman Jettie?
Well, no, because if the idea is to make this free, I'm not against that. I just think it should be reflected in the ordinance. So, which is the official copy? The one that Attorney Bolton has, or the one the rest of us have?
Well, I think the easy way around this is to just amend this to add that sentence. I mean, you're the ones that have to enact this, and if you're looking at something different, let's have you do an amendment if that's the wish of the board.
Well, it's my wish to do an amendment, but could you supply the wording?
In the second sentence, or following the first sentence in paragraph 5, add a sentence that says the 15-minute parking is free.
Okay, and then is there that the next sentence I have is 15-minute parking time limits shall not apply to designated handicap spaces. Is that still in your copy?
That's what I have.
Okay. So I would move to amend the ordinance as enunciated by the city attorney.
Okay, the motion is to amend by adding 15-minute parking is free. Discussion on the amendment. Alderman Clee.
Thank you, Madam President. I think that somehow our copy did eliminate that. But when you do look at the fact that it talks about the fiscal note of the loss, I think that was the intent of when we look at the fiscal note on it. So I completely support Alderman Jettie's amendment, and I'm glad that it was caught. Thank you.
Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you, Madam President. A question to Corporate Counsel Bolton. As far as the handicap, if there's no handicap spots available, a handicapped person that is properly plated or placarded can park in a designated parking spot and would receive free parking. Am I correct?
Yes. Nothing you can do about that.
Not looking to do it, but changing anything So the 15 follow-up, if I may, Madam President. The 15-minute wouldn't affect the people with handicap proper placarding or plating.
Correct.
You're muted.
The amendment is to add 15 minutes parking free in the fifth paragraph. Any further discussion on the amendment? Would the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman O'Brien,
Yes.
Alderman Clee,
Yes.
Alderwoman Kelly,
Yes.
Alderman Dowd,
Yes.
Alderman Karen,
Yes.
Alderman Clemmons,
Yes.
Alderman Lopez,
Yes.
Alderman Tenza,
Yes.
Alderwoman Lou,
Yes.
Alderman Jettie,
Yes.
Alderman Schmidt,
Yes.
Alderman Harriet Gathright,
Yes.
Alderman Wiltshire.
Yes,
You have 13 yeas and 0 nays.
and that motion carries. The motion before us now is for final passage of ordinance 2016 as amended. Anything further? Seeing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman O'Brien,
Yes.
Alderman Clee,
Yes.
Alderwoman Kelly,
Yes.
Alderman Dowd,
Yes.
Alderman Karen,
Yes.
Alderman Clemmons,
Yes.
Alderman Lopez,
Yes.
Alderman Tenza,
Yes.
Alderwoman Lou, President Wiltshire, did you hear her vote?
I did not. It looks like she's
Muted.
muted.
Alderwoman Lou?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you. Alderman Jettie,
Yes.
Alderman Schmidt,
Yes.
Alderman Harriet Gathright, President Wiltshire, did you hear Alderman Harriet
I
Gathright?
did not.
I don't know if she's.
Yes. I
Thank you
said,
very
yeah.
much.
Yeah,
Thank you.
sorry.
Alderman Wiltshire,
Yes,
you have 13 yeas and 0 nays.
and ordinance 20-16 is declared duly adopted.
First reading of ordinance 2017, authorizing free parking at meters and pay station spaces through November 15th, 2020.
Alderwoman Kelly. Motion?
I do. I move to suspend the rules for a second reading of 2017 by roll call.
Motion is to suspend the rules. Discussion on that motion? Seeing none, would the clerk call the roll, please?
Alderman O'Brien,
Yes.
Alderman Clee,
Yes.
Alderwoman Kelly,
Yes.
Alderman Dowd,
Yes.
Alderman Karen,
Yes.
Alderman Clemmons,
Yes.
Alderman Lopez,
Yes.
Alderman Tenza,
Yes.
Alderwoman Lou,
No.
Alderman Jettie,
Yes.
Alderman Schmidt, Alderman Schmidt,
Sorry. Yes.
thank you. Alderman Harriet Gathright,
Yes.
Alderman Wiltshire.
Yes,
You have 12 yeas and 1 nay.
and that motion carries.
Second reading of ordinance 2017, authorizing free parking at meters and pay station spaces through November 15th, 2020.
Alderwoman Kelly.
I move for final passage of O 2017 by roll call.
The motion is for final passage of ordinance 2017.
If I
Discussion?
could speak to it, please.
Alderwoman Kelly.
Thank you. So I mentioned it when we brought up the 15-minute, but the idea here and what I had the legal department draft up is something very similar to holiday parking. I spoke to a number of businesses downtown. They're struggling. We're all struggling. But one of the points that was made to me that I thought was really poignant is that even with the things that we're doing, allowing expanded, they may only recoup 20 to 50% of normal sales over the next few months. And so anything we can do to continue to make sure that they are prioritized for people. And I've been in the downtown business community for a number of years now, and consistently people say, oh, I go to Amherst Street because it's free parking. So my intent here was to make sure that we can keep the downtown vibrant and to offer a little bit of relief. It's not a long-term thing. I understand that there is a parking study going on, and I want to make sure that we do that study and have some really solid answers. But I think as an interim step, say to the community, we understand you're struggling and we want to help you. This does achieve that.
Okay, Alderman Dowd.
Yes, I think with all the changes we're doing to Main Street, we're already losing a lot of parking revenue. As chairman of budget, I don't want to lose any more revenue than we're already losing. We can't afford it. And if we don't charge for the parking that's not taken up by the changes we just approved, then either residents that live down there or store owners are going to park there all day long and not pay anything. I think that for those parking spaces that are left, that we should retain the parking fee.
Alderman Wilshire, if I could respond.
Alderwoman Kelly.
Yep, just a clarification that it's just like holidays, so your time limits are still enforced, your overnight parking is still enforced. So it's not, we're not gonna have people parking there all day long with no recourse there.
Alderman Clee.
Madam President, I have to agree with what Alderman Dowd had said. The problem that I have with this is, and unlike the holiday parking, which is only certain streets, it's not every single side street, not Main Street when it comes to holiday parking. It's the parking garage and so on. But the problem that I have with this lost parking revenue is that when I look at that fiscal note and I see that the low end is $108,000 and the high end pre-COVID was $204,000. This would be on the backs of the taxpayers. They would have to pay this money because it's a pay me now, pay me later situation. And the bottom line is that these fees are being paid not necessarily by the taxpayers, it's by people who come here. Maybe people who come here from Amherst, maybe people who come here from Massachusetts. They're the ones that are paying these fees. We're asking the taxpayers to make up this amount of money. There's already a lot of that they're going to have to do. I can't see putting this onto the backs of our national taxpayers, number one. Number two is that I agree that people will stay a little bit longer in the parking spaces than they might have. I also disagree with that people are going to Amherst Street and they're not going into any Friday night, Saturday night. There are waiting lists to get into Fratello's and to get into Martha's and to get into the Surf and all of our wonderful, incredible restaurants downtown. I also know that even parking sometimes is difficult to find because these restaurants are so crowded. I think that we've at least made one step forward by doing what we're doing on Main Street and doing the 15-minute parking. I don't think we should sell the entire farm. We can't afford to lose anywhere from 108,000 to 104,000, and I don't think it's going to hurt the businesses. The business will only be probably most of the time up to 50% capacity. Even when they're allowed to go back indoors, it's not going to be full. This is going to go on for a long time, and I don't see the need to do something like this. While I think it is a nice and kind gesture, the taxpayers are going to pay for this, and I won't vote for that. So thank you so much.
Alderman
President
Lopez.
Wilshire?
Oh.
So my objection isn't that residents might use the parking spaces because I'm kind of like cheering them on. And I know they're going to be hurt income wise. And so they could probably use that boost. But it does seem like this has merit that needs to be vetted a little bit more carefully. I can think of some areas like maybe the High Street lot where it primarily just serves a clinic, like maybe waiving the fees there, or I also think that West Hollis doesn't have a lot of the advantages that Main Street has in terms of on-street parking and that type of thing, where having the availability to put tables out and everything. And then additionally, I was almost going to ask Director Cummings if he was still here for an update on the parking study, but um, I kind of would like to see this go to infrastructure committee so that we can look at it like as in pieces and say where would this work effectively and where wouldn't it? Because I think there's merit here, and I agree with what Alderman Clee said that like we can't necessarily give away the whole farm, but I think it could be useful in some areas in the same way that adding 15-minute parking downtown was useful. There may be areas where it is effective, so I wouldn't want to shoot the idea down. I'd want to see it more go to infrastructure committee.
President Wilshire?
Alderman Clemmons.
Thank you. So earlier this evening, I had introduced a memo that basically had the downtown improvement. It was in the history of the Downtown Improvement Committee, what the money has been spent on from 2013 to today, to 2020. And, you know, several years ago, we fought this battle really hard to figure out how we were going to come out with a revenue source for downtown. And the idea was to strike a balance with the businesses that were downtown and say, if we raise your parking revenue, we will make sure that money that we raise from that increase stays downtown. And since 2013, we have kept that promise. And the memo goes through all of the different things that we have spent for downtown throughout the years, including over $200,000 for various studies and things like that for the Performing Arts Center. So, you know, and the farmers market and the winter stroll, things like that. There's a number of things. So the point is that while I understand that it would be nice to be able to do this, if we do it, we are going to jeopardize some of those things that we have done in the past. And in addition to that, we're already in a weak position as it is, because we've lost. Let me go back a little bit. So the way that the downtown improvement money is budgeted is different than most of the budget that the rest of the city runs on. So the rest of the city runs on a July to July schedule. Downtown Improvement Committee runs on a collected basis from January 1st to December 31st. So already, because of the shutdown through March and all of April, and then almost all of May, we've lost significant revenue already from people parking downtown that we would have normally had. So we're already coming into this at a loss. And my thought on this is that the way that it's structured is anything over $728,000 collected from parking meters goes to the Downtown Improvement Committee. I don't even know if we're going to get to that threshold as it is. My hope is that we do, because my hope is that we're successful with the changes that we're making on Main Street, and that people want to come downtown, and we kind of make up for what we would lose normally, like for regular business. But if we were to enact this ordinance, we would just be cutting into that already large loss that we've taken, and then that would begin to hurt some of the other parking operations that we do, and some of the other expenses that the first $728,000 goes to. So overall, I can't support this. And one last reason I'm going to give that I can't support, and it goes back to how this is budgeted. If by a miracle we were to get over $728,000 in fees collected, whatever amount that money is would be allocated in July of 2021. I'm hoping we get there. But if we didn't get there, the next time that we would have the opportunity to fund the Downtown Improvement Committee fund would be in July of 2022. So by passing this, if we pass this tonight, I can almost guarantee you that there will be no extra money added to the Downtown Improvement Committee fund, at least not from parking revenue, and until 2022. And that's because of the structure of how it's funded. So for all of those reasons, I cannot support this ordinance. I appreciate the gesture. I have definitely heard from people who think that having free parking downtown is a great idea. But we made a contract with businesses years ago, and the benefits have definitely played out. And I want to keep that going. And my fear is that we're already behind the game, and we may not make it to the finish line in January. So thank you.
Alderman O'Brien.
Leisure?
Alderman O'Brien, and then I'll call on whoever was next.
It was Alderwoman Kelly.
Okay. Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you, Madam President. I first would like to thank Alderman Kelly for coming up with this. I think it is worthwhile to have consideration, particularly to the folks and everything downtown in these particular trying times, and trying to make these adjustments and trying to get back to some degree of normalcy. But, however, we don't put parking meters on the street to really collect and give out tickets or anything else like that. As a matter of fact, the money that we make, and I hope you listen to my fellow board members, to Alderman Clemens, he hit it right on the head on exactly what happens when the money gets made. Basically, people who do go out and give the tickets and everything, that is funded within the some of the revenue that is generated from the parking meters. It also has a very long train, as Alderman Clemens said. Sometimes that money may go to community development, that may filter down to, let's say, the holiday stroll. And if we give too much away, could we be giving away the holiday stroll? For which I kind of think we would like that, to probably have it as a victory over this particular virus and everything. But Alderman Clemens really hit the nail on the head. It is a revenue that is, generated. It's not going to be made up in the budget. We've all sat at the budget hearings. We've heard different things. We've heard the different cuts going into some of the other type of divisions. And we saw Main Street vacant pretty much since March 16th. I know the date because it was the day before St. Patty's Day. But we know we've seen Main Street vacant since May 16th, March 16th. And it hasn't been much of a revenue generated. And so what Alderman Clemens says, we're already behind the 8 ball. and there's a lag of 6 months with the funding and everything. I really, again, compliment Alderman Kelly for writing this, thinking of the people, but I think it would hurt. The other thing is, what does a parking meter do? It's not to levy fines, it's to create a flush. Now, when people coming in for the restaurants now, there is going to be a time limit, from what I understand, by the governors and for the restaurateurs in order to make money. So you're going to have so much time that you can spend at the table. So what's going to happen if you occupy the parking space? You're not necessarily going to complement that flush that's occurring at that particular table. So I think it's well intentioned, but I think the loss of revenue at this particular time, we have bent over backwards to the business community, particularly in downtown as well, which we should have. But I think this is a little bit too much. And I think the loss of revenue will be very difficult. And we won't see the pain of it for at least another 6 months, as what Alderman Clemens has explained. Thank you.
Alderwoman Kelly.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate everyone's comments, and this is exactly what I was hoping would happen. I wanted to have a discussion about it because it's been brought to me time and time again, and I want everyone to know I really appreciate all the work that's done by the Downtown Improvement Committee, and the things that Director Cummings has been working towards. I think we're all just trying to do the best we can and help downtown. I'm wondering if it is possible, Lori, for me to rescind my motion to for a second reading and send it to infrastructure and potentially have a discussion with Downtown Improvement Committee.
Okay. So you're rescinding your motion for final passage and requesting it be referred to the Committee on Infrastructure.
Yes,
That's your
please.
motion? Okay. Discussion on that motion? Alderman Clay.
Madam President, well, I do think it's definitely a worthwhile conversation, and I'm not sure how I feel about it going forward. I do have some anxiety about the possibility of us killing any kind of additional parking revenue. I think, truthfully, it should be taken care of here, but I do also respect the fact that the working things out in committee is always the best thing to do rather than trying to work it out here. But again, I think it should just end here, and I'm going to stop there. I don't want to see loss of revenue, and I wouldn't even be able to support it, I think, if it went to the infrastructure committee.
Alderman Lopez.
I really want to know what's going on with the parking study. So I guess my question is to Alderman O'Brien. Do we have an infrastructure committee meeting coming up, and can we maybe tackle this all there?
Thank you. Alderman Lopez, as you know, with the what's going on is the Coronavirus 19, the pending legislation before the Infrastructure Committee is a public hearing. And it's a public hearing on renumbering Almont Street. It's a discontinuance of Palm Street. And what has been in the back burner is been the traffic study, or our traffic study, that we're all very much concerned about. But I'm sure you have noticed since March 16th that Main Street has been kind of vacated. So to pay the money for that particular parking study at this particular time would not be prudent, in my opinion, to the tax dollars. And now that we're doing this, and I don't know when this is going to terminate, we're going to have a meeting with Director Cummings, and we may need to recircle the wagons and come up with a new idea, reinvent the wheel. So I will refer further questions on that as far as the parking study through the chair, through the president, to Director Cummings.
Just to clarify, my question was whether we could talk about all of that. Like I wasn't expecting answers for it. As far as I understand, we were expecting the parking study to be done. And as you have pointed out, we just redrew Main Street, so I don't know if that is feasible. So it seems like the committee would be a good time to actually have that conversation about what are we expecting, what can we expect, and let's.
Okay, the motion is to refer ordinance 2017 to the Committee on Infrastructure.
President Wilshire?
Alderman Clemmons.
Thank you. Um, respectfully to Alderwoman Kelly, I won't be supporting this. And the reason isn't because I don't want to discuss parking or even free parking. The reason that I'm not going to support it is for what I said before. Like, we need to get through this year, and we kind of need to see. First of all, we need to see where we're going to be revenue-wise, but more importantly, we need to see where we're going to be with the virus. We need to see how it's going to affect the economy in the city. We need to see how the changes that we made to Main Street. To have an honest discussion on that, we really need to do. We just kind of need to wait and see. My personal objective would be to try to get us over that $728,000 finish line, if you will, to get some extra revenue for downtown. So even if it did go to committee, I don't think it's something that at least I would not advocate for it at any point in time this year. And I get what Alderman Lopez was saying about different areas, but still, I wouldn't advocate for that. So while I think the discussion, and I agree with what Alderman Lopez said about the different areas, and I agree also with Alderwoman Kelly about having a discussion like that, I don't think that it's necessary. First of all, I don't agree with the ordinance at this time, but secondly, to some of the stakeholders downtown, it's a good thing, but to a lot of the stakeholders downtown, it's an anxiety. It creates anxiety, and so because they're like, well, what are we going to do? We're trying to get. Some people believe in the parking like I do, and they believe in the revenue sources, and they're invested in that. And so to have this hang out there is kind of, it's like, my opinion is we should just take care of it this evening. And then next year, let's see where we're at and try to come up with a conversation for the beginning of next year, when we know a lot more than we know today. Thank you.
Anyone else? Alderman O'Brien.
Yes, as chairman of the infrastructure committee, I would like to say to Alderman Kelly or to all the aldermen, we do welcome anything that comes into our committee. We will guarantee it will be properly vetted and discussed, but I kind of feel that's exactly what we're doing right here and right now. I'm not saying nothing is dead on arrival, of course not. But the thing is, I just kind of wonder what would be the additional magic that would come into this at that particular time. But if it does come back to infrastructure, we welcome it. We will do our due diligence, and we will hear it and judge accordingly. So thank you.
Alderman Wilshire, if I can respond.
Alderwoman Kelly.
Thank you. I think, one of the things that's on my mind is I'd like to know a bit of the methodology for what the revenue was. I mean, I put this in and I didn't hear what the revenue loss would be until we were all going fast, but it was like maybe a couple days ago. So I wanted to know just how they calculated that and just, clarify that. I was a bit surprised too with what it came back with. So that's one of the things I'd like to clear up before infrastructure.
We do have Director Cummings with us. I don't know if he wants to shed some light on that. Director Cummings.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. So again, for the record, Tim Cummings, Director of Economic Development. Relative to how the calculation was arrived at, essentially what we did is we took basically looked at last year revenue, and we saw where we were at, and then we compared it to we took an average of what we've seen as a deduction, and for the last 6 weeks or so, based off of the revenue that we weren't taking, and we applied it monthly. So you know, that's essentially the best forecast we could come up with right now with the limited data that we had. We only had about 6 weeks worth of revenue data to look at. I would have liked a little bit more, but essentially we developed that model. And that was the best way we could come up with it at this time. It averaged, I believe, to be something in the order of magnitude of about a 53% deduction from assuming you know, last year's number. That's what we would anticipate a loss moving forward. We assumed a June 1st start date, and we concluded it November 15th, the mid of the month.
Thank you, Director Cummings. Motion is to refer to the Infrastructure Committee. Anyone else have discussion? Alderman Jettie.
Yes. So I was, initially going to say, why is this being, brought forth, a second reading tonight? I mean, we've got this, I think, the COVID-19 virus has given us all a fever of trying to get things done as quickly as possible, and avoid the normal referral to committee and discussions in committee. I don't particularly like this ordinance. I want to point out that there's already free parking after 5 p.m. Or 6 p.m. in some cases. Main Street, it was 7 p.m., but there's no parking on Main Street anymore. And it's free on Saturday and Sunday. So I'm not sure the boost that that Alderman Kelly, or the people who put this forward is going to be there. But I'm a great believer in discussing things in committee. So for that reason, I will support her motion to refer it to the committee.
Okay, anyone else? Motion is to refer ordinance 20-17 to the Committee on Infrastructure. Seeing no one, would the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman O'Brien,
No.
Alderman Clee,
No.
Alderwoman Kelly,
Yes.
Alderman Dowd,
No.
Alderman Karen,
Yes.
Alderman Clemmons,
No.
Alderman Lopez,
Yes.
Alderman Tenza,
No.
Alderwoman Lou,
Yes.
Alderman Jettie,
Yes.
Alderman Schmidt,
Muted.
Did it again. I'm sorry. Yes.
Alderman Harriet Gathright,
No.
Alderman Wilshire.
No,
You have 6 yeas and 7 nays.
and that motion fails. Motion before us is for final passage of ordinance 2017. Any further discussion?
I do have a question.
Alderwoman Lowe.
The question is, if this does pass, does pass, will we still be, will we be keeping all of the parking enforcement staff on? So will we still be paying 44,000, or rather $165,000? Well, half of that, I guess, if it's 6 months. $80,000 this year for parking enforcement staff that we do not use. That's my question.
I don't have that answer.
I can help a little bit, perhaps.
Thank you.
There's nothing in this that that cuts the budget or directs the layoff of any personnel or otherwise provides any saving. Now, you could have other measures. You still haven't finalized the budget for the period beginning July 1st. So, you know, it's up to the board what it would want to do about that, but this measure doesn't do any of it.
Alderman Wilshire?
Alderman Lopez and then Alderman Clay.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that parking enforcement doesn't just do parking at meters. It also does overnight parking and other types of parking, so we probably still need some of them.
Alderman Clay.
Thank you, Madam President. That was actually what I was going to say is that we don't just have parking enforcement for downtown. They do parking enforcement throughout the city. And they patrol the city and so on for the violation of overnight parking and various other things. I don't know whether or not this would mean that there would be loss of job and therefore revenue savings, but I can't see that happening. It's usually not a one-for-one thing. Thank you.
Okay. Further discussion? Seeing none, the motion is for final passage of ordinance 2017. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman O'Brien,
No.
Alderman Clee,
No.
Alderwoman Kelly,
Yes.
Alderman Dowd,
No.
Alderman Karen,
No.
Alderman Clemmons,
No.
Alderman Lopez,
No.
Alderman Tenza,
No.
Alderwoman Lou,
No.
Alderman Jettie,
No.
Alderman Schmidt,
No.
Alderman Harriet Gathright,
No.
Alderman Wilshire.
No.
You have 1 yay and 12 nays.
And that motion fails.
President Wilshire,
Alderman Clemmons.
I would make a motion for indefinite postponement.
The motion is for indefinite postponement of ordinance 20-17. Discussion on that motion. Alderman Jettie.
So, could I ask you, Madam President, the motion for indefinite postponement has the effect of preventing a similar ordinance being proposed anytime during the rest of our 2-year term on the
Yes.
board?
Correct.
So it would effectively forestall any possible consideration of the merits of this ordinance anytime in the future, at least as far as the 2 years of the year and a half left on our terms. Is that correct?
I would like to defer to Attorney Bolton.
The board could suspend its rules if there was a need to address a similar piece of legislation during the remainder of the term.
All set, Alderman Jettie?
Yeah, I guess I would just like to say that I'm opposed to this. It strikes me as a parliamentary procedure to prevent further discussion of something, and I'm I think we ought to remain open to the possibility of things changing and being able to discuss things without this being forestalled by this parliamentary procedure to stifle further discussion. So I'm against this.
Alderman Clee.
President Wilshire?
One moment. Alderman Clee first and then Alderman Clemmons.
Yes, I'm supporting exactly what Alderman Jettie had said. While I voted against this, I would never want to kill any kind of conversation. And I appreciate what Attorney Bolton said, is that we can suspend rules. I don't like the idea of of making a blanket statement that says we don't talk about it unless we have to have another vote. So I can't support an indefinite postponement.
Alderman Clemmons.
Yeah, I just want to state for the record that I definitely want to be able to have a conversation on this, and I stated that before. And I would be supportive of if time came to have a discussion again, and it would be a vehicle. If it was next year, I would support a motion to suspend our rules to allow for the legislation to come back. But I think for the time being, I think this is the best course of action.
Alderman Dowd.
Yeah, we tend to reserve this kind of a motion for things that we're pretty sure won't come up again. I don't think we need it in this case because it was made with the intention of things that were going on with the COVID-19 epidemic. We have no idea where this is going. And I wouldn't want to prevent it from coming up again without having to suspend the rules. If somebody wants to make a similar type of legislation, maybe even with different things within it that limit where the no parking is and that type of thing. So I don't think it's necessary. I agree with not passing the legislation as it was just stated, but I don't think it needs indefinite postponement.
President Wilshire?
Alderman Clemmons and then Alderman Lopez.
Well, I don't want to stifle debate, but I'm going to change my motion to table.
Oh.
Motion to table. Okay, well, that's not debatable. So would the clerk call the roll?
Can I have a point of clarification? How do we table something we just voted it down?
Are we tabling the motion to?
One at a time, please. Alderman Lopez, could you state your question again?
Yeah, how do we just voted against this, so how do we table that motion?
Attorney Bolton.
The board acts by passing motions. You don't act when you fail to pass a motion. So just like if there was a motion to amend that failed, you wouldn't say, well, our work is done. You still have the measure before you. It was a measure to pass it. It didn't pass. Now it's before you again, and motions to table, motions to refer to committee, motions to amend, motion for indefinite postponement, all of those things are in order. You don't dispose of something when a motion to pass fails. Because in proper circumstances, you might amend it and then pass it. You might table it and come back and rework it. You might send it to committee and rework it there. So you've got a typical thing that's done is then there is a motion for indefinite postponement and it's indefinitely postponed. In many ways, indefinite postponement is a euphemism for rejecting, but it is still before you and you have to do something with it.
Okay, would the clerk call the roll? The motion is to table. Would the clerk call the roll?
Yeah, so parliamentary inquiry, Madam President,
Alderman Jettie.
to Attorney Bolton. So what is the effect of a motion to table that would if we pass that, it would be tabled and it could be taken from the table at some future meeting of the Board of Aldermen.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
And another question about policy.
Alderman Lou.
Would it have to be a full board meeting, and how would it be, what's the process for taking something off the table? Would it just be a motion that's voted upon? To take,
Someone would make a motion to take from the table.
Yeah.
Ordinance 2017, and it would be voted upon.
okay, thank you.
I suppose nothing prevents a committee from discussing the concept and so forth, but the actual ordinance could only be revived for possible passage at a full board.
Right. Okay, the motion is to table ordinance 20-17. Will the clerk call the roll?
Alderman O'Brien,
Yes.
Alderman Clee,
No.
Alderwoman Kelly,
Yes.
Alderman Dowd,
Yes.
Alderman Karen,
Yes.
Alderman Clemmons,
Yes.
Alderman Lopez,
Yes.
Alderman Tenza,
Yes.
Alderwoman Lou,
Yes.
Alderman Jettie,
Yes.
Alderman Schmidt,
Yes.
Alderman Harriet Gathright,
Yes.
Alderman Wilshire.
Yes.
You have 12 yeas and 1 nay.
And ordinance 2017 is tabled. Alderman O'Brien, do I have a motion?
Thank you, Madam President. You too. I would like to make a motion that the May 21st, 2020 special meeting of the Board of Aldermen be adjourned by roll call.
The motion is to adjourn. I don't see any discussion. Would the clerk
That's
please call the
off.
roll?
Alderman O'Brien,
Yes.
Alderman Clee,
Yes, we have a second meeting coming up.
Alderwoman Kelly,
Yes.
Alderman Dowd,
Yes.
Alderman Karen,
Yes.
Alderman Clemmons,
Yes.
thank you, Alderman Lopez,
Yes.
Alderman Tenza,
Yes.
Alderwoman Lou,
Yes.
Alderman Jettie,
Yes.
Alderman Schmidt,
Yes.
Alderman Harriet Gathright,
Yes.
Alderman Wilshire.
Yes.
You have 13 yeas and 0 nays.
And we are adjourned at 10:29 p.m. Those of you on finance, that meeting is coming right up.
Good night, everyone.
Bolton, I have a quick question.
Good night,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Good night, everybody.
Attorney Bolton, are you still there?
Yes,
Good night.
he's still there.
Yes.
Was this, so if we, I didn't ask because we ended up tabling it, but if we didn't definitely postpone this and it was deliberately styled after the
I'm going to, excuse me, please bear with me here. As Vice Chair of the Finance Committee, I find that due to the state of emergency declared by the governor as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic and in accordance with the governor's emergency order number 12 pursuant to Executive Order 2020-04, this public body is authorized to meet electronically. Please note that there is no physical location observed and listen contemporaneously to this meeting, which was authorized pursuant to the governor's emergency order. However, in accordance with the emergency order, I am confirming that we are utilizing WebEx through the city's IT department for this electronic meeting. All members of the Finance Committee have the ability to communicate contemporaneously during this meeting through this platform, and the public has access to contemporaneously listen into this meeting through dialing the following number: 1-978-990-5298 and using the password 273974. The public may also view this meeting on Comcast Channel 16. We previously gave notice to the public of the necessary information for accessing the meeting through public posting. Instructions have been provided on the City of Nashua's website at www.nashua.nh.gov and publicly noticed at City Hall and Public Health Department. If anyone has a problem accessing the meeting via phone or Channel 16, please call 603-821-2049. In the event that the public is unable to access the meeting via the methods mentioned above, the meeting will be adjourned and rescheduled. Please note that all votes that are taken during this meeting shall be done by roll call vote. Let's start the meeting by having the clerk call attendance. When each member states their presence, please also state whether there's anyone in the room with you during this meeting, which is a card under the right to know. Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll?
Alderman Clee,
Here. I am alone in this room, but in close proximity is my husband and my two greyhounds. I am attending this call virtually by the governor's order.
Alderwoman Lou,
I'm present, I'm alone, and I can hear you. Thank you.
and the clerk, I'm present. I'm alone, and I am safe to see. Alderwoman Kelly,
I'm here. I can hear everybody. My 9-month-old is here in the room with me, but he's not advising me in any way, shape, or form. And I am practicing social distancing.
and Alderman Laws, out. Alderman O'Brien, Senior.
I'm present, I am alone, and I can hear the proceedings. Thank you.
Okay, also in attendance is John Griffin, our CFO, Dan Cooken, Purchasing Manager, and Kim Kleiner, Administrative Services Director. I also had listed here Dave Fredette. Is he here?
No, Mr. Fredette is not here.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Did I miss anyone else? Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Communications from Dan Coogan, Purchasing Manager.
Yeah. I move to accept, place on file, and authorize the change order number 1 in the amount of $15,290 and change order number 2 in the amount of $13,283 for a total amount of $28,573 for 14 Court Street Fire Suppression System from North Point Construction by roll call.
Mr. Coogan, did you want to talk to this? I think you might be muted.
No, he doesn't look like he's muted.
Looks like we may have lost him. I'm not sure.
Alderwoman Clee, I can speak to it.
Oh, thank you, Director Kleiner. I appreciate that.
So on change order number 1 for $15,290, what was found was the existing devices in the liquid therapy and the artist space are not compatible with the required fire alarm panel that we are installing. The devices in those areas will need to be replaced as part of this project. The original bid package did not include replacing those devices. So that is the change within the price.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any questions?
Yes, I have a question.
Alderwoman Lou?
Thank you. In Mr. Coogan's memo, or it says details are attached. Did we not get something that was meant to be attached?
Alderwoman Lou, I can't speak to why he said that. So I received an update from the contractor. I am not aware that Mr. Coogan had the details that I have here. I can go on, since it's all on one memo, change order number 2 for $13,282.50. That is because originally the existing wet and dry systems in the attic are not part of the scope of work. The fire marshal asked that we check the sprinklers just to make sure there were no deficiencies in these systems. What we did find that the sprinkler heads will need to be replaced in about 2.5 years, and the compressor for the dry system is at its near end of life. It's almost 30+ years old. So we looked at having the contractor perform this work since the building's unoccupied, and the contractor's already on site. It minimizes any future disruption when the building becomes occupied. So that's the second change order.
Okay. Thank you. Just what is this project? Did it just begin? This project on Court Street?
It did. So we began this project shortly after City Hall closed, shortly after the 15th of March.
Thank you.
Alderman Clee? Can't hear you.
I was muted. I apologize for that. Alderwoman Kelly, and then Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you. I just wanted to, for reference for Alderwoman Lou, this project has been something that we've talked about for a while. But I think the most striking piece that came up was Fire Chief saying that the Court Street building is the one that keeps him up at night. So I'm very thankful to see he said it. That was exactly what he said on the record. So I was very happy to have it done, and I'll support these these change orders. Sorry, it's late. Words.
Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you. When I was a deputy chief, I had other buildings I worried about, but Court Street is near and dear to the city. It's one of the oldest. It was a fire station. It was reconfigured into our original performing arts center, and yet the city of Nashua leads the way. We demand off the public to have fire protection, and that goes into residential and commercial properties. And we should be the leader in that in our own building to make sure that our sprinkler systems are up to par from what Kim Kleiner said with the the air compressor, we actually called it in the fire service a jockey pump, and that keeps the dry system dry. And when the dry system is no longer dry, the reason it's dry is because it's in an area that will freeze. And when the dry system is no longer dry, then you're paying a lot more money on broken pipes and false damages and everything else. So this is very much money well spent for fire protection and for the integrity of the building. I support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman O'Brien. Ms. Kleiner, I just want to reiterate something that you said or kind of ask you. By doing this now versus waiting for the 2 years or 2.5 years when everything is going to need to be done again, we would then disrupt the current occupants at that time, as well as possibly cost us even more money in the end. And as Alderman O'Brien pointed out, if we don't take care of this, we have potential of other issues going on. Is that correct?
That is correct. So we would be concerned, just as Alderman O'Brien stated, that the dry system did not remain dry, which could cause several problems. But also because of, if there's any happy side to this, when we closed City Hall, we also closed Court Street to the tenants. So it's empty right now. We got the contractors in there. We asked them to really work on this project while no one was in the building. They've been able to do so. In fact, we expect that it'll be near completion next week, which has really helped both the contractors and any potential disruption to any programs, which wouldn't be the case most likely in 2 years.
Very much. Sorry, Alderman O'Brien.
Yeah, and please indulge me. You're in my level of expertise. Go figure. But
We love it.
but anyways, this is part of the normal procedure. Sprinkler heads do have a life expectancy, and they need to be changed. I can't really. Now you got me going back to the NFPA books, but I thought I retired. But they do need to be changed. If you don't change them, then you can get what's called in the business a cold flow. In other words, the sprinkler head lets down. Again, it's saving the taxpayers money. So very much to have a properly maintained. And may I give my usual PR for the sprinkler system? There's been about a 96. There's never been a loss of life when in a properly operated sprinkler system. Building that has been properly operated. So it goes a long way.
Nice to hear. Are there any other questions?
Nope.
Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Yep. Alderman Clee,
Yes.
Alderman Lou,
Yes.
Harriet Gathright, yes. Alderwoman Kelly,
Yes.
Alderman O'Brien.
Yes.
Okay. We have 5 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you so much. And so the motion carries 5-0. Communications from Dan Coogan, Purchasing Manager.
I have a quick question.
Sure, Alderman Lou.
Alderman O'Brien, why don't I see you on my finance committee roster?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I'm a member of the finance committee.
Okay.
Yeah.
He's a member.
Okay. I never thought you were. Thank you. I don't know.
I could go if you want. I
Oh,
mean,
no, you don't.
I just wondered.
Alderman Lou, it is late at night.
Yeah.
Ben is calling.
All right.
Madam Clerk, if you could continue, thank you.
I move to accept, placed on file, and authorized 2-year external audit contract with Melanson Heath in the amount of $122,500. Funds are available in Department 126, Financial Services, Funds, Professional and Technical Services of $89,900. Department 168, Solid Waste, Funds, Professional and Technical Services, $13,000. Department 169, Wastewater Funds, Professional and Technical Services, $19,600 by roll call.
Director Kleiner, would you speak to this, or would it be Mr. Griffin or Mr. Coogan?
This would be, Madam Chair, this would be Mr. Griffin, CFO for the city.
Thank you. Please go ahead, Mr. Griffin.
No worries. Yeah, by way of background, I provided a memo to Finance Chair Mayor James Donchis. Hopefully that was communicated to you folks as well. Our recommendation is to keep the incumbent, Melanson Heath, which has an office locally in Nashua. They do a great job. They know our systems, Lawson, Munis, even admins. They've been auditing us for several years. What they do is from time to time, they change out the principal. So the principal on the engagement now is Mr. Ed Boyd, who replaced Mr. Scott McIntyre. The audit culminates in the comprehensive annual financial report, which you may recall we reviewed last year. We will set up a meeting going forward this year, but it's been difficult with the remote meetings and so forth. So I'll make sure they get in to talk to us on that at another finance committee meeting. The $122,500 is the amount for this year. And as you mentioned in the reading of the request, not only do they do the general fund audit, but they also audit the solid waste and wastewater. So that's a pretty good deal for us. On their end, they help us with the financial statements, included in the CAFR, the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report. So we think it's a good amount, reasonable amount for the city. It's roughly 2.5% over last year. And the follow-on year is about 2%, the $125,000 that's in the memo. So with your votes tonight, you will have us enable us to retain Melanson and Heath and start working on the audit for this fiscal year, fiscal 2020. And if you had any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Mr. Griffin, are there any questions?
I do have a question.
Go ahead, Alderwoman Lou.
Thank you. Did any of the committee receive the memo to Donchis?
It was not attached to the agenda that I could see, other than the original letter that requested this from Mr. Griffin. So, I mean, sorry, Mr. Coogan.
Right. Okay.
We did not get that. We did not get that letter. Alderwoman Lou, do you have anything specific that you feel that you need to ask?
Well, I wanted to ask, but I also wonder if, I think pursuant to 583, this type of thing, say this type of financial service would be accompanied with a couple of things from the purchasing manager, such as a description of the work to be performed and the hourly rates and a not to exceed contract price and any exceptions to this solicitation. And I think they're usually, things like that are usually part of the packet. This packet tonight seems very sparse, and I don't have a lot of sense of, I know there aren't bids required for this particular contract, but that is my comment.
And I cannot disagree with you, Alderwoman Lou. Usually our packet is much bigger. I don't know what happened, if we seem to have lost it. I went and double checked on the agenda also to see if there was something that was missing. So
So what, Madam Chair, if I may?
Sure. Yes, please.
Included in the submittal for tonight's review was the actual contract. Do you have the contract?
No.
No,
So,
we don't
so what
have-
I could do, is send you, the committee members, the memo that I just described to the mayor. And then I would also send you the contract. The contract is very similar to the ones that have been approved in the past. And that has all the representations. It's a multi-page document that would have all the representations of the services being provided. It culminates in the final rate. I could send that to you, you and the committee members. I can't do it tonight. I'll certainly do it tomorrow morning early. The
Okay.
purpose of getting this approved, the reason why we actually put this on the agenda with respect is so we can start scheduling the pre-audit work, which is very important and helps cut down the expense. The Melanson Heath team usually try to pre-audit before close the accounts payable and other things before they get into the heavy audit, which usually takes place in August and October. So that's why we didn't postpone this particular submittal until next month's meeting.
I have a question.
Excuse, wait a minute. Before we go any further, I am going to ask the members with that lack of information. So, what is, if we weren't to act on this today, and they weren't able to do the pre-audit, what would be the additional cost to this contract? I think we need to know that before we act in any way.
It's more of a timing. I can't quantify, like, they're not going to change the cost of the contract. It's just that Ms. Evans, who was the senior accounting manager, she schedules them and they fit everything in a timely fashion. They're a fee for service, so they have a people allocated. They don't want to come in if they don't have a bona fide agreement, so they're waiting for this just to have them work on our audit, the pre-audit side of it, within the next few weeks.
And I appreciate that. I'm going to take the question from Alderwoman Harry Gathright and then go back to Alderwoman Lou.
Okay, you spoke of a memo. Was it the memo 20-105?
My particular memo, Alderwoman Gathright, was dated to the mayor May 12th.
Okay.
To Mayor May Donchis from John L. Griffin and Rosemary Evans, May 12th. Recommendation to extend Melanson Heath and Company contract. This contract, as it's 2 years, will also require next Tuesday Board of Aldermen approval. So I would definitely go forward post haste to get you this memo as well as the actual contract.
All right, thank you.
So just so that I can clarify this to the rest of the members, when we approve or disapprove this, we have another vote that happens at the Board of Aldermen on Tuesday. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Griffin. And if we do pass this here with a recommendation, then the Board of Aldermen makes the final decision, and we have the memo, and we'll make sure that all the Board of Aldermen get that memo. I don't know what happened. It's probably because we've been trying to rush things with COVID that something got slipped through the crack. Am I correct on that?
Madam Chair, John Griffin, CFO, that would be much appreciated. And in a communication I had between Ms. Graham and Mr. Kuchen has every intention of providing the memo to the full Board of Aldermen, and we can make sure that we can attach these two documents that may work as well. It usually comes into you folks as a communication.